Now it's the time of the day for Ferrari to make up for the past, but can anyone match the powers of McLaren and company? Belt up, get in gear for Grand Prix Formula One.
Hungary has been a good track for me because both in '96 and '97 we ended up winning. So it's been a good track. It's fun to drive on. There's some interesting corner, but for racing it's pretty difficult because there's no straight lines basically.
And you're very welcome to the Hungaroring for round 12 of the 1998 Formula One World Championship, the Hungarian Grand Prix. Everybody agrees this is a crucial race for Michael Schumacher. He currently trails Mika Häkkinen in the Drivers' Championship by 16 points, so a win almost vital for the German. It was a good day in qualifying yesterday for Damon Hill. If you were with us, you would have seen him place the Jordan 198 on the second row of the grid, his best qualifying performance of the year so far. So he starts fourth, and a podium finish definitely a possibility for the Jordan team this afternoon. Let's have a look now to see how the qualification ended yesterday. So Mika Häkkinen on pole for the 8th time this season, and David Coulthard in the second McLaren joins him on the front row. Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill line up alongside each other on row number 2. Then we have Eddie Irvine 5th and Jacques Villeneuve 6th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the second, Winfield Williams is 7th. Giancarlo Fisichella 8th for Benetton. Alexander Wirth 9th. And Ralf Schumacher 10th in the second Jordan. Well, Damon, after your 4th place finish in Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, which I know you were extremely pleased with, you must be equally pleased with 4th place on the grid for the race.
Yeah, very pleased. It was an important one to do well at, to qualify in the top 6 here. So to get 4th is a very good result, and I'm very happy with that.
What are the aspects that make a car good around here? Because it is a very different track to, say, Hockenheim.
Well, you need grip. I mean, that's the bottom line, is you need grip, and the only way we get that nowadays is with downforce. And that is the key to everything in Formula One. If you can get more downforce, more efficient downforce from the car, then you'll perform well. It saves the tyres, it gives you more grip in the corners, just enables you to go faster.
You've acknowledged that a lot of the drivers don't actually like this circuit, but you do. Well, why do you like the Hungaroring so much? Because you've done very well here.
Yeah, maybe they should like it a bit more. I don't know. I've gone well here. I have to accept that I have gone well here over the years. But, you know, I can't do it without the equipment, and the car has performed better and better over the last few weeks and months. And I think that to get the car in a state of being 4th on the grid here in Hungary shows that that's all down to the work at Jordan, really.
Traditionally, the Jordans have been good on high-speed circuits and have suffered on circuits that require high downforce. So where have the steps forward been made recently?
Aerodynamically, mostly. A little bit of chassis, but also engine as well. Mugen Honda produced more horsepower, better drivability, and those things have helped. But the answer, one of the reasons that I've been brought on board is I've got some experience, and I've got a little bit of setup experience for this circuit too, and that helps. But what Jordan haven't had in the past, they've had performance, but they haven't had any continuity from track to track. And if you take the performance that we've been having recently, you can see that there's some continuity there from circuit to circuit, from Canada, the French Grand Prix, to the British Grand Prix, through those races, German Grand Prix, now Hungary, a variety of different circuits, and the performance has been getting better all the time. So that's really important. You have to have that if you're going to be in with a chance of winning a race in Formula One.
You did have frustrations early on in the season and trying to develop the car, but psychologically, what sort of effect does it have on you, and your approach to the weekend when things are getting better like this?
Hopefully it makes people motivated a bit more. It helps motivate the engineers and the mechanics. Everyone feels better in the team, and they feel that their efforts are worthwhile, and reaping rewards. They can see that it is worth putting that extra effort in, and it's down to me, to the driver, to work hard for them too. So everyone feels better.
Now, looking at the grid for the race, you've just got Michael and the two McLarens ahead of you, Michael alongside you. I know it's hard to gauge from practice and qualifying, but is it possible for the Jordan 198 to outrun, we'll say, Michael's Ferrari?
I think it's going to be very difficult to do that. A lot will be down to the start. Unfortunately, I'm on the dirty side of the grid, and I've just watched the start of the Formula 3000 race, and everyone on the right side of the grid went backwards. So that's not looking too good. But yeah, a lot will happen. I mean, we're fourth right now, which is great. To hang on to fourth is going to be very difficult, and to do better, we'll need a bit of luck. But you know, we could be on for a good points finish again tomorrow.
This is his favourite track, as almost everybody knows now. He's never finished outside the first two. I hope that little sequence doesn't stop tomorrow, but as it happens, it is his best qualifying to date. A very competitive fourth place, and we're very pleased.
Now, listening to some members of the team coming here, the hopes weren't really that optimistic, so fourth place, was it a surprise to the team?
I think if one has to bear in mind where we were in Monaco, perhaps 3-4 races ago, we were really in the doldrums, so to speak, and this is a very similar type of track. It's quite bumpy, it's also very undulating, and it also has very tight corners, so it needs a lot of aerodynamic aids to make it go around, and traditionally a Jordan car has not always performed at its best in these circumstances, and as a result of that we were somewhat hesitant in making a forecast of huge moves forward, but we're very pleased that these improvements are there, and this was the place we were going to find out how good they were.
We always went well here in 94, 95. We went very well here, and then sort of they seemed to lose the plot a bit in the last couple of years. But you know, Damon, this is Damon's home circuit. For some reason, he always flies right here. You look at last year, and you look at the year with Williams, he won the race easily here. It's whatever way he drives, it's his circuit, and he's going to be tough tomorrow, that's for sure.
New engine from Honda is an improvement, no doubt whatsoever. But then a lot of engine people move forward with different specifications and different regulations. Here we're running obviously an engine that gives a lot of bottom end power because you need to punch out of the corners, and they're very, very talented people how they run these engines. But I think the more pleasing thing, or the most pleasing thing about the advancement or the move forward from Jordan is that under very difficult circumstances and in a very short time frame we were able to develop a car that clearly had great difficulties into being a car that can run virtually close to the front.
I suppose a little bit unfortunate from your point of view that Williams have pretty much done the same thing, having struggled early on. They certainly have made some strides forward as well recently.
Yeah, they certainly have. I thought Villeneuve's third place in Hockenheim last race was a very strong personal individual effort. It's nice nevertheless to have Damon in front of the two Williamses here. You know, I did think earlier in the season that if we could drag ourselves up to the likes of Williams, perhaps Ferrari even, and Benetton, it would be a big huge boost for the team. And the fact that we are, you know, we've got two McLarens and Michael Schumacher in front of us, you know, we're quite proud of ourselves. It's not over yet, we've got a lot of work to do tomorrow, but I think taking the circumstances and the problems that we have endured here at this circuit in the past, it's been a very major step forward.
We can make the car well balanced but bad over the bumps, or we can make it, you know, good over the bumps but not so well balanced. That's the big problem.
Now, this isn't an engine circuit at all, but how difficult is it going to be to live with the McLarens tomorrow?
I think I got to forget about it to a certain extent, to be honest. They're over a second faster than me in qualifying, but Michael's right there with them and he can give them a hard time. I'm really just hoping I can be the best of the rest.
Your starts have been pretty consistent and pretty good all season, and of course for the race you're on the good side of the circuit, as it were, so it will be important to get a good one, won't it?
You're damn right, you know. If you look at the 3000 race and you look at the race last year, the first three cars on the left-hand side of the grid were first, second and third at the first corner, so hopefully that's the situation come the race for me.
Now, we've heard there hasn't been too much difference between the prime and the optional Goodyear tyre. What influenced your selection?
Well, really I was happy with the option right from the start, so I thought it was an okay tyre. I watched what was happening with everyone else on the primes, but I never really felt that it was worth the risk. I'd set my car up on the options and work that way.
Does it give you any greater flexibility with regard to race strategy?
Well, I'm happy I could do one stop, which isn't the quickest way around here, so I've got an option of 2 or 3. But, you know, where we are right now, 2 would be the sensible choice. 3 would be taking a bit of a chance.
It's a very physical race, so it's a matter of just keep pushing all the time, and making the good starts, 50% of it, good strategies, 30% of it, and 20% is just pushing hard every lap.
You mentioned the physical aspect of the race, and we know you've had back problems this year. Have they been sorted out as yet?
Not really. I've got a new seat that's better, but the problem is because my legs are so high in the car, it's always twisting my back and forward, and to try and hold it in place. I'm having to use my back muscles because I'm lying so much in the car. I can't use my stomach muscles. So we haven't really cured that, but it'll be better at this circuit. It won't be such a big issue here.
Traditionally, this would not have been a strong circuit, nor indeed maybe Hungarian or the Nürburgring. And so the other 3 that are still to come, which is Spa, Monza, and then the race in Japan, should be absolutely perfect for us. So if things really, really went well, who knows?
I think the Constructors' Championship is going to be very tough. DC is quite a bit ahead of me, and Mika's quite a bit ahead of Michael. We really are really focused more on the Drivers' Championship because Michael can do that little bit extra. I think he has a chance here tomorrow, and if Mika doesn't finish, it's only 6 points. Sort of the race is on again.
Yes, Damon Hill obviously very pleased with his place, second row of the grid for the first time this season. And Eddie Irvine there looking forward to a good start. He's on the clean side of the circuit, as he pointed that out to us. So hopefully Eddie will make another good start. But David, what we're looking at here, McLaren 1-2 on the grid, they'll be hard to beat.
Well, that's a hat-trick of 1-2 from McLaren's, really. So maybe their luck is going to change. They've been hard pushed this weekend, and I think the important factor here is that they're on the softer tyres, where Michael Schumacher's gone on the hard Goodyears. So really, last year we saw that Bridgestone were the tyre to beat. We're not quite sure yet how the tyres are going to last or degrade here at this event. But, I mean, the major interest really has been Jordan's fantastic performance here this weekend. We couldn't get a greater contrast with what happened in Hockenheim as to happened here in terms of circuits. Super fast circuit there, super slow circuit here. So Jordan's capable of performing anywhere. And when you look at the grids again, really the only cars ahead of them are McLaren's and Michael Schumacher. So they're really knocking on the door. So there's every chance that we'll get one of the Jordans on a podium, and more likely Damon. Damon's results around here have been quite extraordinary. 2 wins, second last year, and this is where he made his debut in '92. So maybe it just might go Jordan's way this weekend.
A few races ago, the pressure was on McLaren because Michael Schumacher was winning races. He was qualifying well. Now the shoe's on the other foot, really, isn't it? I mean, the pressure's on Michael Schumacher to do well.
Well, this is a pivotal race. If Michael doesn't do it here, he's really going to be struggling in the next 2 circuits, which are super fast, Spa and Monza. So really, this is Ferrari territory. I think they've called the shots right. They've gone for the more conservative, harder tyre. He's got to push. There's no way about it. We've always seen him being a great racer. He's a real terrier when he gets in there, and it'll be exciting first few laps.
The 2.46-mile Hungaroring circuit may not have the dramatic high-speed straights of circuits like Hockenheim and Monza, but it does present the teams with as great a tactical challenge as they'll face all year. Which tyre option to choose, of course, a major decision for the team engineers over the weekend. And right now, Declan is down in the pits, and at the moment, he's with Perry Bell, who's operations manager with Goodyear Formula One.
Perry, it's very hot here again. Hungaroring is quite an abrasive track. Tyres were critical here last year. What about this year?
Well, I think, again, tyres are going to play a role, perhaps not as big a role as last year. I think the groove tyres have made the tyres actually more durable, harder, and I think that you're going to find that the tendency to have big give-up is not, or degradation or deterioration of performance is not going to be here this year.
Different options for the drivers. We've seen here at Jordan, Damon Hill has chosen the softer tyre, Ralf Schumacher's chosen the harder tyre. How are things going to pan out for them, do you think?
Well, I think, once again, it was personal preference of the drivers. I think Damon felt that the softer tyre had a little more grip. Ralph ran a back-to-back comparison, and he chose the harder tyre, not finding much time difference in the softer tyre, and felt that the tread wear on the harder tyre was going to be an improvement or significantly better than the soft tyre, so that was his option.
What about pit stop strategy? There's been a lot of talk that maybe 3 stops, 2 stops, or 1 stop. But what do you envisage?
Well, I think, if you look at the computer simulation, it says 3 is the fast way around. However, the computer doesn't take into account traffic, and I think most people are going to opt for 2.
So we're going to see 2 stops. And for the remainder of the season, Goodyear still pushing ahead with development?
Yes, we're pushing very hard. We'll have a new tire. We're going to introduce new dry and wet tires at Spa in 2 weeks from now, and we're going to continue to test.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry.
And now just confirmation of the grid for this afternoon's race. Mika Hakkinen taking his 8th pole position of the season, alongside him David Coulthard, his McLaren Mercedes teammate. On row number 2, Michael Schumacher for Ferrari, and Damon Hill achieving his best qualifying position of the year, 4th for Jordan. Eddie Irvine 5th in the Ferrari, and remember, on the good side of the circuit, Jacques Villeneuve there in 6th place in the Williams Mechachrome. In 7th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the 2nd Williams. We have Giancarlo Fisichella 8th for Benetton. Alexander Wirtz, his teammate, in 9th place. And Ralf Schumacher for Jordan, running on that harder compound Goodyear tyre, as we just heard from Perry Bell. He's there in 10th position. Jean Alesi 11th in the Sauber. We have Pedro Diniz for Arrows 12th. Mika Salo in the Arrows 13th. Rubens Barrichello in the Stuart Ford lines up on the 14th spot on the grid this afternoon. And looking further down the grid now, Johnny Herbert 15th for Sauber, Jarno Trulli for Prost Peugeot 16th, Jos Verstappen 17th in the Stuart Ford, Tora Takagi, once again the best of the Tyrrell drivers, he's in 18th place. And of course, a reminder once again that just 21 drivers lining up for this afternoon's race. Ricardo Rosset failed to get within the 107% of qualifying of the pole position time, so he misses out once again for the 3rd time this season. So we have Shinji Nakano 19th, Olivier Panis 20th, and Esteban Tuero in 21st position. Well, David, always worth looking at the morning warm-up times, and interesting to see that for once this weekend we saw Ralph ahead of Damon, but it's still looking good for the Jordans this afternoon.
Yeah, talking to the mechanics and engineers just before the race there, they made some modifications to the cars for warm-up, and they seem to have a significant difference for Ralf Schumacher. He's delighted with the setup, so much so that he was 5th quickest in warm-up, a 1 minute 20.3. Now, the lap record was held here in 92 by Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 18.03. Now, the time set this morning was Mika Hakkinen, setting the time of 1 minute 18.6. David Coulthard was 2nd quickest. Frentzen, again, another good performance for Williams, up in 3rd place there, 1 minute 19.7, so their best part of over 1 second away. Michael Schumacher again, as ever, up there, 4th quickest. Ralf Schumacher 5th, Jacques Villeneuve 6th. Damon Hill down a little bit, but was happy with the car and had a little bit of problems with the FIA stewards along with Johnny Herbert, and it looked as if he was going to lose his qualifying time because he had set his fastest time in warm-up when a yellow flag was waved. But fortunately, nothing came of that because the chief steward is a man from Galway called Brian Brophy, and there's no way he would have taken the time away from Damon Hill. They wouldn't have let him back into Ireland. I think he'd have to stay the rest of his life in Hungary.
Yes, thankfully it was good news from the stewards this morning after Damon Hill had recorded a fast lap under yellow in practice. Thankfully, no major sanction against Damon, and there he is pulling away on the formation lap. The McLarens lead them away, and it really is significant to note at this stage that the cars starting on the right-hand side of the grid as we look back at them certainly have the advantage, because that has been the racing line, that's the cleaner part of the circuit, and because this isn't used that often during the year, the other part is very, very dusty indeed, and they will have a lot of wheel spin. Here's the formation lap.
So just past the first corner, tight left-hander, taking about 80 miles an hour, 3rd gear. Now into this little left-hander now, it really drops away. It's difficult to see that one. Over to the left of the screen is the 2nd corner. That's about 60 miles an hour, and a very fast right-hander, Ajib corner, 120 miles an hour. 2nd fastest part of the course, up through Marlborough corner, left-hander, 110 miles an hour, and then through Shell corner here, taken in 3rd gear about 80 miles an hour. Now, this is a corner that traps out a lot of cars. It's the top chicane. They approach it about 140, get through in 60 miles an hour in 2nd gear. Then you got the top sweeps here. There's a left taking 120 miles an hour, then a right-hander taking about 90. Then you have another left, 140 approach in 5th gear, and then you come up to the difficult right-hander where we have several cars again run right out over the curb. This is not the one here, it's the next one here, which is after this one here. They come into Mobile corner, and that's about 120 miles an hour in 4th gear. Small little bit of a straight, and they get up to about 150 after the Mobile corner. That's the last left-hand sweep you're looking at there. There's Mobile corner in the background, and this is the bottom chicane. You see a lot of cars again run right over the curb of the exit, which you can do, but a little too much, and the car hops in the air, and you can lose a lot of speed speed down to this corner, which is the second most popular corner for overtaking. But if you make a mistake on this little left-hander here to the left of your screen, you don't really see it there, taking at second gear at 60 miles an hour, there's a big drop off, and if you run into the gravel, it's very difficult to get back in. Now this is probably the most important corner on the circuit, Bridgestone corner, the last corner before the pit straight. They enter there in about 110, 115, and the lowest speed to that corner is about 80 miles an hour in third gear, and then out onto the pit straight. And as you pointed out, Peter, earlier on, the inside is the dusty side, so the cars on the left-hand side of your screen will invariably have a difficult start. But it was interesting to see that Damon Hill was the only car that was running down the inside of the circuit for warm-up to clear the dust away. He's in the second row of the grid on the left-hand side of your screen there.
Well, we had the Formula 3000 race here yesterday, and the cars on the left-hand side of the grid literally went backwards when they went away from the start. Such was the amount of dust on that side of the circuit. Let's hope a good look for Damon Hill this afternoon in the Jordan. Ralf Schumacher lines up on the 5th row of the grid in 10th place, and Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari. He's in 5th position on the clean side of the track there, just behind Michael Schumacher as we look at it now. So he'll certainly be looking for a good start. He'll be aiming to get by Damon Hill there to the left of your screen, the first of the yellow Jordans. The red lights are on. We're ready for the start of the 1998 Hungarian Grand Prix. Mika Hakkinen on pole position, and away they go. Good clean start by Mika Hakkinen. David Coulthard away well. Michael Schumacher gets by Damon Hill. Damon trying to hold his line. Eddie Irvine going around the outside. Hakkinen leads them through turn one, followed by David Coulthard. And yes, indeed, Damon has lost one place. Eddie Irvine getting the better grip as they went away from the start. They're all cleanly through turn number one. Yes, they are indeed. Ralf Schumacher appears to have a slight problem off the start. They may have lost a couple of places. Yes, indeed he has. Damon Hill is back to 5th place, but he won't be too worried at that at this stage. Eddie Irvine has got by Damon Hill, so they lead away on lap number one. We have 190 miles of high-speed racing to come. 77 laps of this Hungaroring this afternoon. A crucial race for Michael Schumacher. I'm sure he was hoping for a better start, but having said that, David Coulthard got away extremely well, considering he was starting from the left-hand side of the grid as we looked at it. So all safely through, all 21 cars embarking on this, the first lap of the race. Mika Hakkinen already opening up a little bit of an advantage on his teammate David Coulthard. Then we have Michael Schumacher, followed through by Eddie Irvine. There's Schumi going through now, followed by Eddie Irvine. There's Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and we also have Alexander Wurz up there now. A good start by Wurz. He was in 9th position, so he's got by his teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. The packed hills here around the Hungaroring, ready for a great race this afternoon as they complete lap number one. Mika Hakkinen leads them through, followed by David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher. Here's Eddie Irvine now through turn 13, followed by Damon Hill. Eddie Irvine, very good opening lap by him. There goes Hill, followed by Villeneuve, Frentzen. Alexander Wurz up to 8th place. Jean Alesi has moved into 9th. He's also got by Giancarlo Fisichella. We have Pedro Diniz 11th and Mika Salo 12th. So good start by both Arrows drivers. Ralf Schumacher unfortunately lost 3 places off the start. He was in 10th position, so he was on the rather dusty side of the circuit, so he has suffered as a result. But remember, Ralf Schumacher is driving on the harder Goodyear compound, the prime compound I should say. So a little bit later on, as the race wears on, Ralph's tyre performance should improve. But a good start by Hakkinen and Coulthard.
Yeah, but the interesting was why Ralf Schumacher lost so much time there. And I think that's possibly due to 2 things. Not just the left-hand side of the circuit he was starting on, but probably running a heavier fuel load to take him further on. And here we see him. Just watch him. He loses there to Jean Alesi, and then the 2 Arrows get by him as well. He actually is slightly balked as he runs into the back of the Benetton. He's had to back off the throttle there. And also we see Irvine make a flying start as ever. The super fast starting Fast Eddie around the outside, and he muscles Hill over, and he gets boxed in behind Michael Schumacher. So Hill has got nowhere to go, and Eddie Irvine makes a clean move around the outside. That is one of the moves that you can make when you're overtaking here, both the inside and the outside of turn one. Michael Schumacher still staying pace with the McLarens.
So 2 laps completed in the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's still Mika Hakkinen from David Coulthard. McLaren dominating for the moment. 2.1 seconds back to Michael Schumacher in 3rd. Eddie Irvine still 4th, and in 5th place Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve 6th, 7th Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Alexander Wurz 8th, Jean Alesi 9th, Giancarlo Fisichella in 10th place, Pedro Diniz 11th, Mika Salo 12th, Ralf Schumacher in 13th place. And in fact, it was through the Ajit turn number 3 on the course, where Ralf Schumacher was caught by both Arrows cars, so he'll be a little bit disappointed with that. But remember, of course, tyre options will play a huge role in this race this afternoon. We reckon that the popular choice as far as pit stop strategy is concerned will be 2 stops. Some may opt for 3, but David, looks pretty unlikely that anybody's going to risk 1 stop, especially if the temperatures remain as high as they are at the moment.
Well, at the top of the programme, Damon did say that he reckoned his tyres were that good that he'd be able to stay out for and take it all the way just on one stop. But I think the important point here to make is that on board with Michael Schumacher absolutely hops it up over the curbs, driving as aggressive as ever. Tight second gear left-hander, that's the second last corner, gets into here about 110. Bridgestone corner just before the start and finish straight, keeps it tight, feathering the throttle, drifts it out to the outside. He's using more curb than all the other cars put together here, and the gap still, just looking at his times here, it was 1 minute 21.9 for Hakkinen and 1 minute 21.7 for Michael Schumacher. And this is the other point, is that we're not really quite sure how the Bridgestone tyres are going to wear or how they're going to last over the period of the race. So far they've been fairly bulletproof, but from the recent tests in Spain, it appeared that Goodyear in a very hot climate and a very abrasive circuit over a period of time can stay apace with the Bridgestone. And when you add Michael Schumacher into that equation, you've got a real race on your hands.
Fantastic action there with Mika Hakkinen. He smoked up his left front tyre, really driving hard, trying to establish a gap at this very early stage in the Hungarian Grand Prix. But as you can see, David Coulthard is staying in touch. Good signs too from Michael Schumacher. He's been able to keep pace with the McLaren cars, and it'll be interesting now comparing these 3 as the race wears on, because of course the McLarens are shot by Bridgestone. It's Goodyear for Michael Schumacher, both of course using hard compound tyres. So last year Bridgestone most certainly had the upper hand here at the Hungaroring. It certainly was giving their cars an advantage of up to 0.5 of a second per lap, but it doesn't appear to be that way this year. Goodyear have done amazing work over the last few races to improve their compound, improve the tyre construction. And of course Bridgestone this afternoon, well, they're using a new wider front tyre, and they reckon they will benefit grip-wise from that. So if they do, they should have an advantage. But at the moment, the Goodyear shod Ferrari F300 of Michael Schumacher staying in touch with David Coulthard. Hakkinen with the fastest lap so far, 1 minute 21.273. The lap record held by Heinz Harald Frentzen. He set it during last year's race, a lap of 1 minute 18.372. Now, considering how far away from last year's times they were in qualifying, it'll be amazing if they get down to something close to that. But having said all that, in this morning's warm-up, Hakkinen's time was 1 minute 18.694, only 0.3 away from the fastest race lap of 1997. So they've lost a little bit of grip as a result of the grooved tyres being introduced for 1998, but they're getting very, very close to the very fast lap times of 1997. There is a race leader and the World Championship leader, Finnish driver Mika Hakkinen, P1 at the moment, and he leads David Coulthard by just over a second. There's just under a second then back to Michael Schumacher in 3rd place. Eddie Irvine dropping off just a little bit, and Eddie is on the softer Goodyear compound as opposed to Michael's harder option for the race. 3.2 seconds back to Eddie Irvine, further 3.2 back to Damon Hill, and then Jacques Villeneuve on Damon Hill's tail at the moment. Very little between those two, the former Williams teammates, and of course Jacques Villeneuve next year driving for the BAR team, but he's buoyed by the success of the Williams in Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, and he's hoping that fortune will look kindly on him this afternoon and maybe another podium finish. There goes Damon Hill, followed through by Jacques Villeneuve, the reigning world champion, definitely going to relinquish his title this year, but is it going to go to Mika Hakkinen, or can Michael Schumacher remount a very severe challenge? 16 points between them at the moment.
Peter, just watching David Coulthard, the way he's sliding the car there, he looks as if he's under extreme pressure from Michael Schumacher. The last couple of corners he was getting the tail out, and that is no way to make your tyres live over 77 laps. But obviously they're not going to do 77 laps on the one set of tyres. If they are going on a two-stop strategy, we expect them to come in on lap 25 and lap 51. If it's 3 stops, it's lap 18, lap 37 and lap 57. And if anyone is brave enough, it's a one-stopper, which would be a lap 36. Now, the last 2 years, the cars that did perform best and were there at the finish to win the race did 2 stops, and Michael Schumacher is definitely closer to David Coulthard. We're on board with Coulthard now. Watch him, watch the car slides up to 150 here, down to second gear, 60 miles an hour here, quite tight, twisty, a lot of dust on the outside there. That's the entrance to the pit road, pulls the car into the middle of the road. A lot of them take a very early apex here, keep it really tight and use the front tyres, and out he goes over the curb there, exit about 120 miles an hour, 150 by the start and finish straight, and this is the fastest straight they have here on the circuit, and they get up to 179 miles an hour. And that was surprisingly the Prost car and the Tyrrell car. McLaren's were second quickest, or third quickest in fact, at 178 miles an hour. Ferrari were right on their tail at 177, so there's nothing between them. But what we've got is those first 1, 2, 3, 4 cars, including Irvine, are doing 1:21s. The rest, right down to John Alesi in 9th place, are doing the 1:22s. And so we seem to have 2 batches there. Those first 4 doing in the 1:21s, and then the balance from Hill back to John Alesi in the 22s.
Further down the order, there's a good battle going on between Ralf Schumacher, Mika Salo and Pedro Diniz. There's very little between those drivers, around 0.8 of a second between the 3 of them. So at the moment you'd probably suggest that Ralf is being held up by Mika Salo and Pedro Diniz in the Arrows TWR cars. And that's as a result of making his bad start, so he is paying a penalty at the moment. But here are the race leaders at the moment. Mika Häkkinen going through. Here is David Coulthard in 2nd place, followed through by Michael Schumacher. You also see Eddie Irvine entering our shot there. Eddie's still lapping in the 1:21s, and in fact he's just had a very, very good first sector there, fastest of the race so far. Eddie Irvine through the first sector in 25.6 seconds, so he may close the gap ever so slightly on Michael Schumacher. Now this will be interesting to see if Eddie's tyres are getting up to optimum performance now, and he may be able to close the gap just a little bit. Damon Hill dropping back from Irvine, and yes, Eddie Irvine with the fastest lap of the race so far, 1:21.129, and Damon Hill 1:22.121, so he lost over a second on that lap, and it's you can see that advantage now that Eddie Irvine has opened up on Damon Hill. Here's Eddie now, and a further second back to Damon Hill at this stage. But Damon, decent lap, 1:22.121, about a 10th faster again than Jacques Villeneuve. So at the moment, Damon Hill is pulling out about a 10th to 2/10 of a second on Jacques Villeneuve. So the Jordan appears to have the legs on the Williams at this stage of the race.
Peter, you've got to remember now also that Michael Schumacher has won this race, as has Damon Hill twice, as has Jacques Villeneuve. So there's some big hitters around here and some drivers that really like this circuit. And also Frentzen. Frentzen would have won this race last year, except he had some mechanical problems. Now Irvine putting in the fastest lap indicates 2 things to me. We know that he's on the softer Goodyear tyres, but I also believe now he's probably running a different race strategy than from Michael Schumacher, because Michael Schumacher is driving the wheel nuts off this car to stay in touch with David Coulthard. He's really got to put the McLarens under pressure to see where their Achilles heel is, to push him, to see if they make a mistake, and we certainly saw Coulthard getting well crossed up there when he was being chased by Schumacher. But I think Irvine's probably going to be on a 3-stop and Michael on a 2-stop, seeing the way they're going at the moment.
And the lap time continues to fall. This time, fastest lap goes to our race leader here at the Hungaroring, Mika Häkkinen and the McLaren Mercedes MP413, 1:20.664. So his Bridgestone tyres beginning to reach maximum performance now, and it'll be interesting to see when they have opted for a stop in this race. Probably 2 stops for the McLaren drivers this afternoon. Big question is, David, could Michael Schumacher, using the harder compound, even consider a one-stop strategy? He is very confident about his race setup, because interesting to note that he actually worked more on race setup than qualifying setup in yesterday morning's practice.
Well, I think the computers told the teams that it's a 3-stop is the ideal, but the problem is then you come out and you get blocked behind other cars there, and I think the real way that they can only play to get by McLaren is to stay out longer and stay out harder. So when the McLarens make their pit stop, hopefully the Ferraris can go on an extra couple of laps, and as the fuel load lightens, that'll be when they can set their quickest time. But just to see the times drop all the time, there's been a consistent performance there between the Bridgestone and Goodyear, yet the Bridgestones are running a softer compound than the Goodyear, but it's only relative to each manufacturer. But just watching the times there, that was a 20.9 from Häkkinen. Coulthard put a 21.1 in, and Michael Schumacher a 21.5. So certainly Häkkinen, Mika, has the real pace here. He's been the best part of 2 or 3 tenths quicker than his teammate throughout the weekend. And that gap now between Häkkinen and Schumacher has opened up to 4.1 seconds. So we've got to watch now. Now they've settled down a little bit, whether the tyres can hold together, because this is going to be about tyres and about not making mistakes. What you find around a circuit like this, you'll get this bunch of traffic later on where the cars will be going around in a train-like procession, and the performance will always be limited by the car in front. So they'll be running actually at the slowest speeds possible, unless you've got someone like Mika Häkkinen, who is the quickest car at the moment, and he's able to pull away from the rest of the field. But Hill has got a big trail behind him. He's got Villeneuve in 6th place, he's got Frentzen 7, Wirtz 8, and John Alesi 9. Giancarlo Fisichella in 10th place, Diniz and Mika Salo still ahead of Ralf Schumacher in 13th place.
As you may know, the teams were testing last week at the Jerez circuit in southern Spain. Temperatures were extremely high, and funnily enough, the Goodyear tyres performed better the higher the temperatures were. Now, it has clouded over ever so slightly here at the Hungaroring, but the track temperature is remaining pretty constant, 33 degrees when they started, and there's been no change in that. So while the Goodyear compound may perform with the track temperature just a little bit higher, and we saw that Heinz-Harald Frentzen recorded the fastest time down in Jerez last week. He was faster than both McLaren drivers, so they were obviously very happy with the compound, and it certainly should be suited to high temperatures. But maybe, as Damon Hill was saying to us earlier on at the top of the programme, and indeed Eddie Irvine mentioned it as well, that the Goodyear runners would certainly prefer to be the temperature, I should say, to be a little bit higher than it is at this present moment. Eddie Irvine is on another good lap, quick through the first sector, but so too is David Coulthard, fastest so far, 25.4 seconds. So David Coulthard not wanting Mika Hakkinen to get too far away. There's the race order down through 7 to 12. With the race leader Hakkinen from Coulthard, Schumacher still third, Eddie Irvine fourth for Ferrari, Damon Hill in the Jordan is fifth, looking for his best finish of the season so far. Remember, he was fourth at the German Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. How he would desperately love to finish on the podium this afternoon. We've a long, long way to go in this race. So much is down to grip and how well these tyres perform for each individual team. Looks like a good lap from David Coulthard as he tries to close the gap on his McLaren Mercedes teammate. At this stage, David Coulthard has resigned himself to finishing probably second in the Drivers' Championship, and now he has to concentrate on helping the McLaren team to take the Constructors' Championship, and they're very much favourites for that at the moment. But even though with 5 races to go, including this afternoon's Hungarian Grand Prix, Mika Hakkinen is the firm favourite, you can never rule out Michael Schumacher. And remember, we have some circuits to go to where the Ferrari could be on par with the McLaren MP413. Well, David, we can see there that both the McLarens going down there, smoking up the left front tyre, so that'll be causing them a little bit of tyre wear.
Yeah, I'm actually just studying the times here, Peter, and at the moment the fastest lap set on that last lap was Eddie Irvine, so he's kept his times in there. He's just 2.9 seconds away from Michael Schumacher and 7 seconds back from Mika Hakkinen, but he is now the quickest man out on the circuit. And here you see him looking, get a little bit sideways at the back. The left-hand front locks up a little bit. You don't see it happen that often with the McLarens. Also, they tend to have a slightly different technique in driving, and of course they're running the wider Bridgestone tyres here. They're 2 centimetres wider on the front, and they were brought in especially for this circuit. This circuit tends to lend the cars into a little bit of an understeer situation, so they tend to grain away the front tyres and lose a lot of grip as a consequence. So they've come up with an extra compound and a slightly wider front tyre, but the balance is absolutely perfect there. It's 2 seconds back from Hakkinen to Coulthard and 4 seconds between Schumacher and Hakkinen, so nothing between them at 11 laps. Remember, if it's a 3-stop strategy, it's going to be lap 18, lap 37 and lap 57. If it's 2 stops, lap 25 and lap 51 approximately.
Quick glimpse of the battle going on towards the back of the field. Believe it or not, that is Olivier Panis in the Prost. He's currently running 21st and last, and he was coming up there behind the minority of Esteban Tuero. So really, this is turning out to be an extraordinarily bad weekend for the Prost Peugeot team. Jarno Trulli currently running in 15th place, Olivier Panis 21st, and remember, they're using what is an extremely good, extremely reliable, extremely drivable and powerful Peugeot V10 engine. But it's not an engine circuit, this is a handling circuit, and it certainly has been a chassis and more importantly suspension problems that the Prost team have suffered with all season, and they really are showing their problems here this weekend. Now here is Olivier Panis as he tries to get by Esteban Tuero down the inside. Does he get through? No, indeed. Esteban Tuero closes the door on the Prost driver, and he remains in 21st position at the moment, but I'm sure he'll be challenging Esteban Tuero as this race wears on. But of course, David, very few overtaking opportunities around here. Probably the best opportunity presents itself at the end of the pit straight here.
Yes, on 2 accounts. One, that the drivers sometimes make a mistake through this long Bridgestone corner onto the pit straight. You often find they sometimes miss the apex, run a little bit wide, and you've got a very severe curb on the outside there and can really knock the hell out of your suspension. So you find the drivers back off, lose a little bit of momentum down the straight, and this is where the overtaking can take place. Corner number 1, inside or outside unusually, because any other of the corners, if you get a little bit offline, inside or the outside, you can spin.
And Eddie Irvine is headed down the pit road. Eddie Irvine is very early, and I don't know whether this is a scheduled stop or not. Does Eddie Irvine have a problem? Yes, problems for Eddie Irvine, not in for a tyre stop. Now there appears to be an element of confusion there. The team were not ready. Has Eddie Irvine got a bad message from the pits. Has he come in for a tyre stop, or is there a mechanical problem? Well, he was in 5th position. Damon Hill had got by, so maybe Eddie has had a moment out on the circuit, or possibly a mechanical problem, but he was in 4th position. Damon Hill got by. We didn't see it on the screen, but Damon moved up to 4th position, and the race is over for Eddie Irvine. Very disappointing for him this afternoon. He's been having an excellent season so far. He was on the podium 6 times so far this season. He's not going to make it number 7 here at the Hungaroring, and maybe Declan will be able to tell us what happened to Eddie shortly. But first of all, we can go down to... Well, we believe that Declan does have the Jordan strategy.
Yes, I'm down at Ferrari waiting to see if Eddie Irvine emerges, but at the moment that's been good news for Jordan, who are planning 2 stops for both drivers. Ralph and Damon will both be doing 2 stops, but still no news on Eddie Irvine. I'll give you back when I get it.
Okay, Declan, and another problem out on the circuit. That looked like that one of the Minardis has called off. It could be Esteban Tuero, so the rate of attrition here last year wasn't too high. We had 13 finishers from the 22 who went to the start. Yes, the race over for the young Argentine driver. Esteban Tuero is out in the Minardi, so 2 casualties on lap number 13 of the 77-lap race. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari is gone. Esteban Tuero in the Minardi is gone, but still leading this race. Mika Hakkinen, the World Championship leader. David Coulthard now 2.4 seconds away. They're all still lapping in the 121s. Michael Schumacher is in 3rd place, only 1.2 seconds behind the Scottish driver. And Damon Hill up to 4th position now. And in fact, it's interesting to note that Damon's lap times have begun to improve now. He's into the 121s, have been lapping consistently in the early 122s. He's now 121.794 last time round. He does have an awful lot of time to make up, and it'll be difficult to reel in Michael Schumacher and the 2 McLarens, because he's all of 14 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, but his lap times have improved, and that certainly is encouraging. There's a little bit of action down around the Jordan garage at the moment, but I suggest it's just a little bit early for them to take the first of those 2 stops. As we pointed out earlier on in the broadcast, those on 2-stop strategy may start coming in around lap 21 or so. There is Michael Schumacher still very much in touch there. That's where he has to stay, and he'll possibly be hoping to make up time, as he has done so often in the past when he makes his pit stop. For some reason, David, he appears to be able to pull these blistering laps out of the bag, either just before he makes his first pit stop, or indeed just after. It's really quite extraordinary the way he can pick up those extra few tenths which count.
Well, what you see here, we have, just a second, David Coulthard on board. It's Olivier Panis on the left-hand side, and he's seen him, so that's okay. That is one of the other major factors in this race. On the slow circuit like this, the back markers can really slow up your pace and mess your times up, so the race can be decided there just by that back marker. Now, the gap has come down between Schumacher and Coulthard. It was, Schumacher and Hakkinen. It was up to 4 seconds. It's now down to 3.1, so bit by bit, we've seen that Schumacher's been pulling it ever so slightly. Best part of maybe less than 1/10 of a second per lap, be able to pull the McLarens in. So remember, lap 18 we reckon if it's a 3-stop, or lap 25 if it's a 2-stop. But as you were mentioning earlier on, what Schumacher does from the day he gets in here on the Friday, from his first lap out of the circuit, every lap that he takes, he gets into the pits quicker than anybody else. And I've been studying this over the years that he's been doing this. He actually has practiced it. There's never a lap that he comes into the pits slowly or in a lackluster way. He's absolutely on the gas. He's locking the wheels up, and this is on a Friday morning going into the pits, so he saves himself fractions there. And sometimes if the others are asleep, he can save themselves tenths of seconds, if not seconds, and it makes a huge difference. There you got a lovely chance to see the slightly different line that Schumacher will take from a lot of the other competitors. He gets into the corner that bit earlier, he comes in on the brake switch, takes it into the apex that bit quicker, so his entry speed is so much faster into the corners than anybody else. But at the moment, it's Hakkinen just 2 seconds ahead of Coulthard, and now exactly it's 3 seconds between Michael Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen.
Yes, brilliant drive for the moment by Mika Hakkinen, and Damon Hill putting in another extremely good lap in the Jordan, although the gap to Michael Schumacher has gone out a bit. Damon's lap 121.793, his fastest of the race so far, so he really is getting on the gas out there. Damon Hill in the Jordan running 4th, and he is now around 6 seconds to spare over Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams. This is a very encouraging performance by the Jordan. Let's just look further down the order. Ralph Schumacher under a little bit of pressure at the moment. He's running in 13th position or 12th position now as a result of Eddie Irvine bowing out of the race. Ralph under pressure from Johnny Herbert and the Sauber, only 0.3 of a second between them. Ralph will be desperately trying to hold him off, and in the meantime he's behind Mika Salo, 0.3 between them as well. So there's a good battle going on further further down the order between Mick Sala, Ralf Schumacher and Johnny Herbert. In car we go with Michael Schumacher as he heads down into turn 1 once again. There's Mika Hakkinen going through the Ajip turn number 3 on this Hungaro ring. Let's go back to the pits now because we believe Declan has been to the Ferrari garage. Declan, any word on what problem Eddie Irvine encountered out there?
Yeah, very bad luck for Eddie. I just had a chance for a quick word, and basically it was a gearbox problem. Right from the start he said that the gears were a little bit notchy, and just on that last lap he lost 4th, 5th and 6th gears. So rare mechanical for Eddie.
Okay, unfortunately, Eddie Irvine out of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and gearbox problems, well, they were what cost Damon Hill victory here last year. Remember, he led for so long, really encountered the gearbox problem on the 3rd lap from home and was left in 3rd gear for the remainder. Jacques Villeneuve reeled in a 30-second gap to take the race victory in 1997. So this is a very punishing circuit. It's very tight, an awful lot of gear changes going on, physically demanding on the drivers. The race itself lasts around 1 minute 45, or 1 hour, I should say, 45 minutes. Remember, in Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, the race there only 1 hour and 20 minutes. So that's the difference between a high-speed circuit and a very tight, slow circuit like this. They're getting amongst the back markers now, so that's costing a little bit of time. Mika Hakkinen going down the inside of the Tyrrell of the Tora Takagi. That was very close indeed. The back markers will need to be careful because there really is a big difference in performance between that McLaren MP413 and the current Tyrrell driven by Tora Takagi. He's down in 18th position. The flag's being waved to let them know faster cars coming up behind, and one of those faster cars who'll be encountering traffic very shortly is this man here, Damon Hill in the Jordan, running 4th at the moment and continuing to bring his lap time down. 1 minute 21.29595, I should say, for Damon Hill. Hakkinen going by the Minardi, and we see that just ahead of him now we have the Stewart of Jos Verstappen as well. So it's getting very busy out there, and this will allow Michael Schumacher to close up on the 2 McLarens, and indeed we can see that David Coulthard will be able to close the gap ever so slightly on his teammate. And while it doesn't appear to be too significant out on the track at the moment, it could be very significant when they come to take those pit stops. This is, of course, a short circuit, so they're encountering the back markers a lot quicker than they did 2 weeks ago at Hockenheim.
Look at David Coulthard, he's been well blocked there. He's trying left, he's trying right, and it's all through a slow section of corners here. Has he got by? No, I don't think he has, and Michael Schumacher will have taken yards out of him on that. He's right up behind him now. There's nothing between Schumacher and Coulthard. Watch Coulthard's head roll over to the left, looking in his mirror, looking to the right in his mirror to see where Schumacher is. The gap between Schumacher and Coulthard is just absolutely nothing now. And another back marker, Jos Verstappen here, series of corners, tight right-hander, tight left-hander. This is exactly what Michael Schumacher needs to be able to pull in, and Jos Verstappen is pulled out of the way, so he hasn't lost anything on that. But just looking back down the grid, Peter, Hill is putting in some blindingly quick times there, all in the lower 21s. The top 3 runners were putting in times of 1 minute 22s. Only Hill and Villeneuve were putting in times of 21s. That's Tora Takagi in for a stop, 9.5 seconds for fuel, so he'll be out again, and he'll need another fuel stop after that, obviously.
Well, you saw the fuel flap still open there, but that's literally an aerodynamic measure, really, and Tora Takagi has control of that in the cockpit like all the other drivers, so it did close as he made his exit from the pit road. And the Ferrari crew are on standby for the moment. So is Michael Schumacher about to come in. They look like they were about to take the tyre blankets off those Goodyear prime tyres, but for the moment Michael Schumacher in 3rd place. His lap times have fallen ever so slightly, 122.329, but that's more as a result of encountering these slower cars further down the field than any serious problems I would have caused with the handling of the car. Here is our race leader coming round to complete lap number 19. Mika Hakkinen through the line, followed by David Coulthard, and Hakkinen has brought the lap time down once again, 120.617. So as soon as he got clear of those back markers, Hakkinen put the pedal to the metal once again. A super lap, fastest of the race so far. There's Jean Todt, Eddie Irvine now having to watch the race from the pit wall. Ross Brawn to the right-hand side, who really is the tactical genius behind Ferrari's race strategy, which has worked so well in this 1998 season. Confirmation there on lap 20 of the fastest lap, 120.617 to Mika Hakkinen, and he's just gone through the first sector in 25.4 to equal the fastest time through intermediate 1, so far. So Mika Hakkinen on a bit of a charge right now. He saw that David Coulthard possibly had an opportunity to get close as they encountered lapped traffic. The Coulthard 2.4 seconds adrift on across the start-finish line last time round. Then there was a second back to Michael Schumacher, and there's 17 seconds back to Damon Hill. That looks like a problem for Mika Salo in the Arrows. Yes, it is. Mika Salo in the TWR Arrows. An engine problem by the looks of things, and his race is over. So the third casualty of this Hungarian Grand Prix. 20 laps completed of the 21 who went to the start. We now have 18 still running out on the track. So last year 13 cars got to the finish, and probably something similar this afternoon. Let's hope, of course, that both Jordans make it all the way to the 77th lap. Ralf Schumacher now beginning to up his pace. 123.378. He's behind Pedro Diniz, and he may be able to attack now. His harder compound Goodyear tires should be coming into their optimum performance at this stage. And hopefully Ralf will be able to make a bit of progress, despite the fact that he's down there in 11th place right now. That certainly doesn't rule out a points finish for him this afternoon.
Here we see, looks like Johnny Herbert running off on the dirt there just through Marlborough Corner before Shell, taking that about 110 miles an hour. It's John Alesi actually, he gets it back on the circuit, but that was an interesting tactical move by Ferrari. They no way were they planning to make a pit stop at that time. It wasn't being held up by Coulthard, so they put the tire men out on the road just to give a warning to McLaren. Hey, we're making our pit stop now, and see how they responded. Now they certainly did respond in the most affirmative fashion you can imagine, because Hakkinen has gone around there and he's blitzed the time there. He's gone down into 1 minute 20s, but Coulthard has not been able to match the pace of his teammate, and he's dropping all the time. Schumacher still remains 4.3 seconds away from Hakkinen, but it's Coulthard that's losing the pace all the time there. Now whether that's a strategic manoeuvre on behalf of McLaren to hold Schumacher back a bit, I don't think so. I certainly saw the way that Coulthard was driving. It looks as if he's driving absolutely flat out at this stage, but Hill's now gap is 18 seconds back to Michael Schumacher in 4th place, and still pumping in good time. Villeneuve is taking a bit of a chase at the moment. He's actually catching ever so slightly Damon Hill. It's 3.6 seconds between Villeneuve and Hill. Frentzen still holding a solid 6th place, but for Ralf Schumacher, with those off-course excursions by different runners, he's now in 10th place, and he's behind Jean Alesi by 26 seconds. But I'm sure he's going to be able to pull in Jean. Jean might have damaged his car with that off-course excursion, so it's quite likely that we might get Ralf up into 9th place fairly shortly.
So here is our race leader, Mika Hakkinen, coming round on lap number 23 of this 77-lap race. He's been driving a very controlled and yet aggressive race at the front, giving it all he can, trying to stay ahead of David Coulthard. And there is Coulthard in 2nd position. Now some action down there in the McLaren pit. Michael Schumacher very, very close to the Scottish driver now. This gap really isn't at all significant at this very early stage of the race. And of course, David, what's always extremely interesting here at the Hungaroring, because the lap is relatively short. Of course, when they make the pit stops, there's every chance that if you time it badly, you can emerge in slower traffic, and it can cost you an awful lot of time out on the track.
Yeah, the figures that I've worked out from last year, if you make a pit stop, just add 20 seconds to the time in the pits. So if you're in for 7 seconds, add 20 seconds to that, so that's a 27-second loss. So that's a big loss. And if you get embroiled in some back marker traffic, throw away another couple of seconds on that. And here we're on board with the Maestro, up to the first corner, down through the 2nd or 3rd gear. Some are taking a 3rd, some are taking it in 2nd. Feather the throttle there, and slingshot out over to the left, down to 2nd gear. Tight left-hander here. You'll just see him come into the shot there, just to the left hand. There's Coulthard. Schumacher keeps it fairly tight there. Then through Ajip, 3rd gear, coming up the 4th gear, 120 miles an hour exit there. But Coulthard seemed to open up a little bit of a space between himself and Michael Schumacher. Small little gap there opening. It was under half a second, but Coulthard is still driving like a man possessed, still blocking the inside front wheels into the corners. Villeneuve pulling in a little bit still on Hill. That gap now is down to 2.4 seconds between Villeneuve and Hill.
The Jordan pit crew are assembling on the pit road as we see Shinji Nakano make his exit from the Minardi pit. The Jordan pit crew are getting ready for their first operation of the afternoon. Will it be Damon Hill or Ralf Schumacher to come in first? We believe it's Damon Hill who'll be coming in first for the Jordan team. Damon's lap times have been dropped off quite significantly over the last couple of laps. In fact, last time round, 123.171, so maybe Damon's tires have gone off a little bit faster than he would have had expected. Jacques Villeneuve has now closed to within 0.8 of a second of the Jordan driver. So Jacques Villeneuve, remember, is on the harder Goodyear compound. Damon Hill for Jordan on the softer Goodyear compound. So this is what we expected, that those on the harder compound would have better tire performance as each stint wore on, whereas those in the softer compound, well, they would benefit earlier on in their stint on fresh tyres. The Ferrari crew are also assembling on the pit lane. As we see, there's a problem there for the Prost, and that's Mika Hakkinen getting by Pedro Diniz, lapping him in the Arrows. So Hakkinen really is flying. He certainly isn't suffering from any poor performance. And another good lap there by David Coulthard. 1:20.699 as we see Damon Hill in the pits now. Let's hope we get the clock on him to see how this pit stop goes for Damon Hill. We see the wheels going on there. Yes, that looks clean enough now. It's all down to a good fuel stop. Yes, that's pretty decent work by the Jordan pit crew there. Didn't have a clock on it, but a very efficient stop by them. And Damon Hill comes out now. Goes down past the pit lane marker, so he accelerates up once again. He comes out behind the Sauber of Johnny Herbert. I think that was Johnny Herbert in the Sauber. And there's Herbert there, in fact, and that is Mika Hakkinen coming up to lap him. So it would have been Jean Alesi that Damon Hill is travelling behind at the moment. Alesi was down in 9th position, so Damon has just emerged ahead of Ralf Schumacher on the track. Ralf Schumacher running in 10th position at the moment. It looks like Damon Hill at 9th, and down the pit road comes Michael Schumacher. Hard on the brakes, a maximum speed limit on race day on the pit road of 120 kilometers per hour. He tears off one of his rip-offs to clear his view for the pit exit, getting ready to race once again. Now let's see how quickly the Ferrari mechanics work around this car. Well, the wheels and tires on in the blink of an eye. Very, very fast stop there by the Ferrari crew, and that's one aspect of the team's performance that has improved beyond all recognition over the last 2 years. And I think Ross Brawn has had a major influence to play on that. Out comes Michael Schumacher, having made that stop. Of course, he went in running in 3rd position. He is now come out behind one of the Williams Mechachromes. And here now we see Mika Hakkinen, our race leader, still ahead of David Coulthard, around 3 seconds the gap. Last time round, Jacques Villeneuve should now be running in 3rd position. Jacques Villeneuve up to 3rd, running on the harder compound. Now the big question is, are Williams being brave with their strategy? They suggested that their tyre selection was conservative, and that may have been an intention to mislead everybody, including the teams and the media, that they made a conservative tyre choice, but they may have gone for a rather adventurous strategy this afternoon if they have chosen one stop. So that could benefit Jacques Villeneuve.
Peter, just looking at what McLaren's are doing and what Schumacher did on that pit stop, he came in at the absolute optimum time, and actually we've got Coulthard in the pits now, so there's nothing in it. But Coulthard, we're just looking at the times, and unfortunately they haven't got a clock on it. And I'm just trying to take an in and out time where we got Damon Hill. Here we got Coulthard in. We've got to look if this in and out is 30 seconds, because that's what Michael Schumacher got in and out. And because they came up with so many back markers, they could lose a lot of time there being out on behind cars. So now that was it looks like a fairly quick stop here. I'll give you a time when he exits the pits here. They've got no clock on it there, but if he's under 30 seconds, 29, I reckon 29.9, so nothing between. There's Michael Schumacher, so it's exactly the same. There's nothing between them now.
Well, that really is extraordinary. Stops by David Coulthard and indeed by Michael Schumacher, and look where they emerge, pretty much in the same position where they entered. But Jacques Villeneuve is on a real charge at the moment. Now David Coulthard, although those tyres will have been under the tyre blankets and should be pretty close to race temperature, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time if they're a fresh set to bed in and get that extra little bit of grip. It'll only take a lap or so, but this is Jacques Villeneuve's opportunity. But even at this stage, he has lost it, and now Michael Schumacher is applying pressure on Jacques Villeneuve. So David Coulthard re-emerging in 2nd place, Jacques Villeneuve running 3rd, Michael Schumacher 4th, Frentzen is 5th, Alexander Wirth in 6th position. And a reminder that the Benetton drivers this afternoon, they're using the harder Bridgestone compound. So Wirth in 6th and Fisichella in 7th have a good opportunity. Ralf Schumacher in for the Jordan team, his first stop of this 77-lap race. 27 have elapsed, so we have 50 to go. Well, that didn't appear to be as clean and as efficient as Damon Hill's pit stop, but we'll get the full time on it when Ralf Schumacher makes his exit from that stop. Hard on the gas. Well, at least from Ralph's point of view, he hasn't emerged in traffic as we go in car now with Michael Schumacher. At the moment, he's travelling behind Jacques Villeneuve, but remember, Schumacher has been in for a stop, whereas Jacques Villeneuve has not. Now they're using the same tyre this afternoon, the harder Goodyear compound. So Michael Schumacher should be getting the better grip from his rubber at the moment. Oh, and this is a front of car shot from the Jordan briefly of Damon Hill. That disappeared quite quickly. We see that one of the stewards in down there in the pit road, that's Jos Verstappen, the first of the Stewart drivers to stop this afternoon. His teammate Rubens Barrichello, well, he's running down in 16th place at the moment, but Good lap last time round by Rubens. He's lapping in the 1:23s at the moment, ahead of Shinji Nakano and Tor Takagi. 3 casualties so far in this Hungarian Grand Prix. Esteban Tuero has retired. Eddie Irvine is also gone with gearbox problems, and well, an engine blow for Mika Salo in the Arrows, so he's out as well. So 3 gone, 18 remain from the 21 who went to the start. A reminder that Ricardo Rosset once again failed to qualify. He was outside the 107% time of pole position yesterday, and the pole sitter today, Mika Hakkinen, is in the pits. Our race leader, who had a 28.9-second advantage over David Coulthard, is in the pits now, so it'll be interesting to see how quickly they can do this. Well, that's efficient work once again by the McLaren team, and Mika Hakkinen should still be our race leader when he makes his exit. We'd like a view down the main straight if we could. Yes, still leading the race. Mika Hakkinen, favourite for the World Championship without question if he wins here at the Hungaroring this afternoon. David Coulthard is having a good performance in second place in the McLaren. Remember, they finished 1-2 at the last 2 Grand Prix. Austria, of course, and Germany 2 weeks ago. 1-2 for McLaren. So the challenge has been thrown down to Michael Schumacher to try and strike back in the Drivers' Championship. David Coulthard, excellent lap by David, 1:20.546 last time round. And in the pits at the moment, Alexander Wurz in the Benetton. He was running in 6th place, I should say. So Giancarlo Fisichella has got by his teammate, but Giancarlo will be paying a visit to the pits very shortly, having seen his teammate make a clean getaway there. Alexander Wurz back out and racing in this Hungarian Grand Prix, still being led by Mika Hakkinen. His teammate David Coulthard is second. Jacques Villeneuve hanging on for dear life to that 3rd place. I'm sure tyre performance will be suffering in the Williams at the moment, but he's keeping Michael Schumacher behind. There's only half of a second between them. He saw them coming through the turn just behind the McLarens there. And in 5th place, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's having a good consistent drive, but more inclined towards the 1:22s as far as lap times are concerned, whereas he really needs to be getting into the 1:21s and 1:20s to live with the front runners at the moment. Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard, Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher. Well, Schumacher's time last time round, 1:21.359. He's brought it down, 1:21.153, as Heinz-Harald Frentzen heads to the pits now in the Williams. So Frentzen heading in, so that means Jacques Villeneuve will be disappearing down that pit road pretty shortly as well. So he will have to concede that 3rd position to Michael Schumacher. And of course, well, Damon Hill, I don't know what has happened. Damon appeared to emerge behind Jean Alesi. Yes, he did. And Damon is still behind Jean Alesi, running in 8th position right now. And there we see Frentzen, a huge problem for him in the pit. The clock 16.3 seconds, so that'll be to Hill's advantage. He'll certainly be able to capitalise on that. So too will the 2 Benettons of Fisichella and Alexander Wurz. So a desperately poor stop there for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. They didn't have the camera on it for too long. As we see the 2 Benettons now, are the 2 Benettons running together on the track, and running out front and on his own for the moment. Our race leader Mika Hakkinen, he's followed through there by his teammate David Coulthard. The gap still around 3 seconds between these two. Then there's a further 2.7 seconds back to Jacques Villeneuve, a half second back to Michael Schumacher. So that's the battle for 1, 2, 3, 4 at the moment. But I think Jacques Villeneuve will be out of that equation for a time at least, because he's due into the pits very, very shortly. Staying out for the moment, keeping Michael Schumacher at bay, but Schumacher not close enough on this occasion to try and get by through turn 1.
That's a big problem for Michael Schumacher. What's happened here is, even though Villeneuve is on hard tyres, the problem is that for Schumacher, Villeneuve is on very low fuel. So this kind of course absolutely requires very low. We see Jarno Trulli out of the race, parked the car there, so he wasn't in the running at all. The Prosts are having an absolute abominable weekend, particularly bad over the bumps. The cars just are porpoising all over the place, so they've got nowhere with the cars this year. So it's a huge problem for Alain Prost as to what he can do. But still, Coulthard clearly set the fastest lap there in the last couple of laps, and now we've got Hakkinen put in the best time, a 1:20.54. So that gap that they've opened up, Jean Alesi's in, so that's going to let Damon Hill move up now to 5th place. So what we've got to wait is for Villeneuve to make his pit stop shortly.
Yes, so that means that Damon Hill should reclaim that 4th position once all the first stops are out of the way. We're on lap number 31 at this stage. Mika Hakkinen absolutely flying, and as yet, of course, yes, of course, he has been in the pits, so too is David Coulthard, but Jacques Villeneuve, the only one now running in the top 9, not to visit the pits. Johnny Herbert in the Sauber, well, he has yet to come in as well. Johnny is in 10th place, so Ralf Schumacher should move back up to 10th from 11th place once Herbert visits the Sauber garage for the first time. So there's still a long way to go in this Hungarian Grand Prix. Mika Häkkinen, our race leader, and here now is Jacques Villeneuve. A crucial stop for the French-Canadian. 4th position now, but of course he'll lose that. Damon Hill will move back up to 4th position. There was 26 seconds between them, 26, and a problem for Jacques Villeneuve as well. So really terrible performance by the Williams mechanics this afternoon. A problem for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and that certainly will benefit Damon Hill here at the Hungaroring. Damon flashes by us, and there he is. Through goes Damon Hill, so Jacques Villeneuve is behind, and that really was hugely significant there, David. He lost far too much time. Now, unless they're trying to get him all the way to the checkered flag with a full fuel.
No, the fuel hose was disconnected while I sat there, and in my view I couldn't see the hose being disconnected, and the same for Frentzen, so I can't figure out what the problem there is. And I did look for the fuel hose, and it seemed to come off, and it looked like it was going to be a quick stop. So what we've got to do is maybe if Declan gets an opportunity to get down and see what happened with the Williams, why both cars were particularly slow. But now that Michael Schumacher has been clear of Jacques Villeneuve, what I was trying to say before all the pit stops came on board was that he could accelerate. Villeneuve could accelerate and get away faster than Michael Schumacher because of the low power to weight ratio, because the car was running on very light fuel. Now with Schumacher with a clear field, he's actually 7.4 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen and 3.5 seconds behind Coulthard. So Schumacher is on a real charge, and we expect him to set fastest lap of the race, and that's what he's done now, 19.952. So that's a huge change. That's best part of 2 seconds quicker than Häkkinen or Coulthard. So that gap is automatically closed down now to 6.1 seconds. So Schumacher on a real charge.
Yes, it's the mid-section of the race, and Michael Schumacher is attacking, I should say, in no uncertain manner. And there you can see how aggressively he's driving, smoking up that left front tyre. But Schumacher, fastest lap to him now in this race, 1 minute 19.952 seconds, and he's just over 2 seconds behind David Coulthard. So it's attack time for Michael Schumacher, but it's so difficult to overtake here at the Hungaroring. I'm sure Michael Schumacher was hoping to capitalise with a very efficient pit stop, and it was very efficient. Good work by the Ferrari crew, but also the McLaren crew worked very well on both McLaren cars, so Schumi unable to capitalise on the first set of stops. But of course they will have to come in one more time in this Hungarian Grand Prix. But it has worked out pretty well for Damon Hill, even though he's around 30 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. He now is ahead of Jacques Villeneuve again. The time lost by the Williams driver in the pits, really very crucial. There's Johnny Herbert in the Sauber, 7.2 seconds, the last driver of those running in the top 10 to make his stop. Now Herbert had around 8 seconds to spare over Ralf Schumacher before that stop, so it does mean that he will move up into 10th place, and Johnny, well, he'll probably emerge in 11th place.
Just watching the way Michael Schumacher is braking into the apex and letting the car and the tail slide out. He's absolutely on a charge. He looked as if he could have lost the race the way he was held up by Villeneuve. That's a huge gap to let the McLarens get away, but he's absolutely on inspired form. He's setting fastest segment times every time he's been out there, and that again, that last lap, he just knocked seconds away from the McLarens, excuse me. The gap now between Schumacher and Häkkinen is 4.8 seconds. It was another best part of 1.5 seconds. Here you see it on the screen, 4.8 seconds between Häkkinen and Schumacher, so he's an absolute charge. But how much have McLaren's got in reserve? And really, Whiz Lady Luck going to come Ferrari's way this weekend. There's been a couple of great races for McLaren, the last couple of races. Schumacher and the Ferrari team have had the problem, so maybe it's going to come back their way. Obviously, it's up to the next pit stops when we expect them to come in around lap 51. And looking at the fuel that both cars have taken on board, it looks like the McLaren are going to go that little bit further. But remember, Schumacher's running on the hard tyres, and he seems to be able to keep the pace of the car even when the tyres are well worn. Very consistent for the Bridgestone as well. It's absolutely perfectly balanced. It's going to be won really by strategy here and by pit stops.
Damon Hill's lap time is 123.362, but through the first sector now he's just recorded his best of the day, 25.7. So Damon has been told, I'd say, from pit wall to push a little bit harder at this stage, because Jacques Villeneuve was closing that gap. By the way, we got news from the Williams garage that the problem that the Williams mechanics encountered was getting that left rear wheel on properly, and that's what cost Jacques Villeneuve those valuable seconds, and of course it did cost him 4th place. As they flash across the line, though, Jacques staying very much in touch with Damon Hill. We're looking at it now. This is the battle for 4th and 5th. Former teammates at Williams, of course, and they had some good battles during that 1996 year. But now, of course, rivals out on the track. Damon Hill driving for Jordan, and it looks ever more likely that Damon Hill will continue to drive for the Jordan team in 1999. Word abound that Damon Hill's contract has been secured and sorted out. Jordan still negotiating with Ralf Schumacher for 1999. So it will be good to have a level of consistency and continuity in the driver lineup for the Jordan team for next year. They've got a very good chassis now, and they'll hope to build on that for 1999, whereas the likes of the Prost team will certainly have to change their chassis absolutely and completely. It has been such a disaster this year, and they're trying to get some new designer on board. Rumour has it that John Barnard, a former Ferrari designer, and of course this year working with TWR Arrows, could be moving to Prost for 1999. But that's all in the future. Let's concentrate on this race now, because Jacques Villeneuve is getting extremely close to Damon Hill. It'll be interesting to compare their lap times as they come out now through turn 13, back down the pit straight. Damon Hill across the line in 1 minute 22.070, 122.374 for Jacques Villeneuve. So under a second still between these two. It's a good battle for 4th and 5th position. Out front, Mika Häkkinen still with 3 seconds over David Coulthard, but Michael Schumacher has closed the gap, and he's closed it quite dramatically. Just half a second now between Schumacher and Coulthard, but will he be able to get by? We're still looking at Damon Hill versus Jacques Villeneuve, 4th and 5th out on the track at the moment. Frentzen is running in 6th place. Back to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, we have 14.7 seconds.
Yeah, just looking at that pit stop there, we heard from Declan in the pits that Frentzen overshot the pit box there and nearly hit somebody. So where Jacques got a sticky wheel. But look at this situation here. 2 winners of this Grand Prix, 93 and 95 for Damon Hill, 96 and 97 for Jacques. So both trying to make a hat-trick out of these, or well, 3 wins here. And remember last year that Damon very nearly won this and finishing 2nd place. So both know this circuit like the back of their hand. Both have been winners, double winners here, both hustling hard, and I'm sure that chasing for a podium place here, because of those 3 front runners, Häkkinen, Coulthard and Schumacher, the chances are maybe one of them will make a mistake here. It's very easy to get offline. A car runs off of the dirt and throws some gravel up. You don't see it, you come around, you run on a whole load of marbles, and before you know where you are, your backside's going quicker than your feet, and you're going up into the dirt. And we've seen it happen several times as Hill blasts by there Denez down the inside, because Mika Salo is out at the moment, or sorry, yeah, Pedro Paulo Denez.
Now this could certainly work to Damon Hill's advantage. That really is the ideal place to get by, and he may have bided his time. Well, Pedro Denez, you see, he's defending his position. Not too many places to get by, and really only the one racing line. You get offline here at the Hungaroring, you get out on the dirt, and it takes 3 to 4 to 5 corners to get the tyres working properly once again to improve the grip. But there, Jacques flashes by, but he has lost a little bit of time, so that has worked in Damon Hill's favour. He has opened up a slight gap there as a result of Pedro Denez holding up, although quite legally it has to be said. He only made the one move, which he's perfectly entitled to do to defend his position. He remained on the racing line. Of course, you're not allowed to weave. The drivers have agreed to that in 1998, that no weaving is allowed, and indeed I'm sure the stewards would punish severely, because there have been a few complaints lodged with the race stewards during this 1998 season. So the drivers have been told no weaving, you can make one move to defend your position, but that's just about it. So Jacques Villeneuve has no cause to complain there, really. Pedro Denez just trying to have the best race possible in the Arrows, despite the fact that it is being lapped.
Peter, we're looking out here on the circuit, and Mika Häkkinen has yet got to lap a certain Schumacher, but it's a Ralf Schumacher. And what I've seen here is a certain Ron Dennis walk down to the Jordan team. So I wonder what, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see what's going on out there at the moment. But look at this, you see just Ralf Schumacher there, Michael Schumacher, he's told him, stay out of the way, don't block him. But this is absolutely fascinating stuff. I don't know whether he's held up anything on Häkkinen, but that gap between Schumacher and Häkkinen is 2.9 seconds at the moment. Fascinating stuff, this.
Yes, I'm sure Ralf won't hinder Michael's progress, and for the moment he has no reason to get out of the way. David Coulthard not close enough as yet to go by Ralf Schumacher, so Ralf is going to hold the racing line, possibly if they complete this lap number 38. Oh, and there is Häkkinen.
He's made a big mistake, got oversteer. He's run really wide there, a mistake of his own doing. He must have lost best part of a second there. Completely got it out of line. Häkkinen very nearly went off in the dust, Peter. Remember, Fisichella ran wide there on Bridgestone corner and put it in the weeds. So he must have best part of dropped himself a second going around on that corner. Incredible moment that he gathered it all up together. Now there's nothing between him here, a real sandwich, and Ralph still hasn't let him get by. Now Ralph is obligated, because he's been overtaken as a back marker, to move out of the way. He has not got to stay in the racing line, he's got to pull out, and he did it very wisely there as he came out of a quick corner, back off, so maybe held up Coulthard a little bit. So very clever manoeuvres there by the Schumacher ensemble.
And I definitely think we saw a little bit of brotherly love there on that occasion, Dave, because Ralph certainly waited till Michael went by as well. But he is running well down from these two at the moment. No point in interfering in this particular battle. And Mika Häkkinen really driving like a demon out there. I don't think that really was a lack of concentration on Mika Häkkinen's part. I really think it was just overly aggressive going in to turn 13, getting way offline. But as you said, when you get out onto the dirty stuff here, all the marbles and the dust on this Hungaroring, you pick up an awful lot of rubbish on the tyres, and it just takes a little while to scrub it off once again. But Häkkinen flying once again, and there's 2.9 seconds between them last time they crossed the start-finish line, so the time he lost not too significant. We're going to check it this time now as he comes through turn 13 once again for the 39th time. Mika Häkkinen, our race leader, over he goes, and look at the pressure now that's on David Coulthard from Michael Schumacher. Will Schumacher try and have a go? He's having a look down the inside. David Coulthard slams that door shut, but did he close it too early? Michael Schumacher taking a very tight line through turn 1 as they embark now on lap number 40 of this 77 lap race. A superb battle going on here. Now remember, Michael Schumacher uses intimidatory tactics, tries more often than not to keep within the rules, although every now and again, for instance in Argentina, he's inclined to step just outside them. He's extremely aggressive, and now that they're behind one of the back markers, there could be trouble. No, David Coulthard gets by, and yes, the Tyrrell making room there also for Michael Schumacher, so they negotiated that one with ease. But Michael Schumacher now putting huge pressure on David Coulthard, and the Scot in the past has been found wanting. Look at Michael Schumacher, he really is all over the McLaren MP4 13 at the moment. David Coulthard's mirrors will be full of flaming red right now, and it's a flaming Michael Schumacher flying out there at the moment. Damon Hill too going extremely well for Jordan. He's resisted the challenge of Jacques Villeneuve and put in a very good lap. Oh, Schumacher getting it right out over the dirt there, a little bit too aggressive on that occasion, and that has cost him a valuable few hundredths. Yes, it's down to even hundredths at this stage. When you're talking about the battles between these cars, they're so closely matched, and any mistake whatsoever will cost you time, and that has given David Coulthard just that little bit of breathing space and has eased the pressure on the Scot for the moment. So small mistake for Michael Schumacher there. But Damon Hill's last lap, I was just going to say 1:21.218, and that was the second fastest time around lap number 40. So Damon giving it a real go in the Jordan 198 at the moment. He's currently in 4th position. We know who's battling for P1, 2, 3 at the moment. Jacques Villeneuve, well, at this stage, just a second behind Damon Hill, with a result of 14.8 seconds then, back to his teammate Heinz-Harald Frenz.
You just get a tiny window of opportunity in these kind of races, and that was it. He just had a slight opening. Coulthard make a little bit of a mistake, and he didn't capitalise on it, because this section here, the top section of the course after the chicane, are all sweeping corners, and it's very difficult to tow up under the wing. So Schumacher really in his championship aspirations are just slipping through his fingers here. He's drinking from the last chance saloon. He's got to do it around here. 3rd place is no good. He's driving the car as if he's a man possessed. See, he's leaning on the tyres, kicking up dirt, running out over the curbs. There is nothing in it. He has got to maintain this pressure on Coulthard. It just, the cards have fallen so badly for him. The worst scenario we could possibly hope for is Häkkinen leading and Coulthard spitting him, because he just can't put the pressure on Häkkinen. Häkkinen now has opened that gap because both Coulthard and Schumacher were slowing each other up as they were battling mightily there for 2nd place. The gap between Schumacher and Häkkinen now is 4.8 seconds.
So Mika Häkkinen, our race leader, goes by Shinji Nakano there in the Minardi. The race order: Häkkinen from Coulthard, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Damon Hill 4th for Jordan, Jacques Villeneuve in 5th place, and Jacques once again has closed that gap, so they're toing and froing there, 4th and 5th. Jacques Villeneuve getting close, then dropping away as Damon puts in a good lap. But Damon, I think, may have been in traffic last time round, because he dropped out into the 123s once again. Jacques Villeneuve 122.625, so he's able to close up just a little bit, 4/10 between them now. So the former Williams teammates having a great old battle there for 4th and 5th. There's a fair gap back to Frenz in 14.4 seconds, then 6 seconds back to Alexander Wurz, who's battling away with his Italian teammate Giancarlo Fisichella, as we see the Ferrari pit crew out on the pit lane once again. Ferrari pit crew waiting for Michael Schumacher. And if you joined us late, a reminder that unfortunately Eddie Irvine has had to bow out of this Hungarian Grand Prix this afternoon. He encountered gearbox problems, I should say, with around 5 laps gone in the race, and therefore had to return to the garage. No point continuing. He had lost 4th, 5th and 6th gears, we believe. So that ended Eddie's race prematurely here at the Hungaroring. But Michael Schumacher's race still very much on, and it'll be interesting to see now how quickly he comes in for this pit stop, because at the moment he has made his challenge on David Coulthard, and now the tyres may be beginning to go off and he's not able to really mount a challenge there through turn 1. It's one of the few overtaking opportunities around this Hungaroring, so he may be coming in to try his 3rd set of tyres of this race and hopefully get a slightly better performance from them, and then maybe capitalise when the McLarens go to make their stops. Because remember, he's not too far away from Mika Häkkinen at this stage either, our race leader. The smallest mistake by the McLaren crews could allow Michael Schumacher to close the gap. We've seen the Williams crew have problems this afternoon with both Heinz-Harald Frenzen's stop and indeed Jacques Villeneuve. So the McLaren crew will have to be really on their toes, because Michael Schumacher is applying huge pressure not only on David Coulthard, but Häkkinen will know as well that Michael is only 4 seconds away at this stage.
Peter, working out the figures here for pit stops, he's coming in way too early if he comes in on this stage. So really this looks like a decision that's taken off the hook probably by Ross Brawn, because he's not been able to make any impact with McLaren, so there's no point matching them pit stop for pit stop. So if he comes in now, he'll be coming in effectively 10 laps before he should do. So what he's got to do in those 10 laps, if he makes his pit stop, and it looks as if he's going to go into the pits there, yes, he's in the pits, so that's an incredible 10 laps before the optimum time is. And what that's got to do is, remember, it's 4.2 seconds between them, so over the next 10 laps he's got to gain back that 4 seconds. Fascinating stuff, brave move by Ferrari.
So Michael Schumacher in now. He had around 39 seconds to spare over Damon Hill. That's the brake dust blowing off there as they whip off the wheels. Fresh tyres on and a good stop. 6.8 seconds. 6.8 seconds for Michael Schumacher. 43 laps gone of 77. So well, he's got a long way to go on this final fuel load. It seemed to go in extremely quickly, David. Maybe you can do a quick calculation there on your manual, whatever that is you're using there, calculator you call it, yes, and see will that be able to get Michael Schumacher all the way to the checkered flag. But it certainly was 6.8 seconds was very, very quick indeed to get that fuel load in to take him all the way to the checkered flag. So what do you think the strategy is?
Well, he can't make it on that fuel. At 6.8 seconds he can't make it unless he was carrying an additional fuel. Now he's made a stop earlier and he has got some fuel on board, so because he's come in 10 laps earlier, it's going to be in addition to the fuel that he has there, so it's going to be very marginal. But you would expect on a 2-stop strategy, or a 1-stop strategy, we said lap 38, on 2, 25 and 51. So what we've got to do is watch Schumacher's times now over the next 10 laps before we imagine McLaren are going to come in. McLaren's are lapping in the mid-20s, 20.9 from Häkkinen, 20 point, and Häkkinen, Coulthard's in the pits.
David Coulthard in the pits after a very, very good lap as it was, coming down to the pit lane. He recorded a very fast first sector on that last lap. It was probably relief because he had seen Michael Schumacher peel off. He probably said to himself, well, thank God he's gone for the moment. Now I can relax for at least my final lap before my stop. And look, he's lost time. 8 seconds for David Coulthard. Remember, it was 6.8 for Michael Schumacher. So what's going to happen? Michael Schumacher, through he goes. David Coulthard slips to 3rd position. So that was an extraordinary decision by the McLaren team to call David Coulthard in, considering the excellent stop we had just seen from Michael Schumacher. Once again, the Wunderkind has done it in the pits. Mika Häkkinen is our race leader, but now Michael Schumacher is up to 2nd place. So Coulthard now has to catch up in this Hungarian Grand Prix.
Peter, working what Ron Dennis decided there was he's really got to keep Coulthard between Häkkinen and Schumacher, so get him in early, and hopefully they didn't expect to lose that amount of time in the pits because he had a second or so on him, so he should have been able to get out and be able to battle him foot by foot. So that was a very clever move by McLaren to be able to think as quick as that and get their car out to hold him, but it didn't quite work. They didn't allow for the genius of Michael Schumacher.
And indeed, all credit to Ross Brawn, who probably was working on the strategy as this race has been progressing. So Ferrari have won out as far as that tactic was concerned. Super move by Michael Schumacher, and David Coulthard now is back to second place. But let's check the gap between Mika Hakkinen, who has yet to come in for his second stop, and the man in second place now out of turn 13 across the grid markings, cross the start-finish line. Michael Schumacher, 1 minute 19.918. The German driver is flying at the moment. Now what he's trying to do here is he's trying to put in a few really fast laps after that stop, so that when Mika Hakkinen finally makes his second stop, he may even be able to take the lead. Remember, before all this began to happen, over the last few laps, there was around 4.2 seconds between our race leader Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher, who was then in third position. So blistering time there by Michael Schumacher, 1:19.918, and again fastest time through the first sector, 25.2 seconds. Here is where Michael Schumacher could very well snatch victory here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. I know, just 45 laps gone of the 77, but this is an absolutely crucial time. Is Mika Hakkinen coming down to the pit? Yes, the race leader is in. Now, this is where this 1998 Hungarian Grand Prix could very well be decided. Down the pit road comes Mika Hakkinen, our race leader ever since the start, lifting his visor there as he makes sure he's going to hit his markings spot on, and he comes. Let's see now, get the clock on this one. Let's see, Mika Hakkinen. Remember, Michael Schumacher's time in the pit, 6.8 seconds, and he's already over that. Mika Hakkinen, 8.4 seconds. Now, that's not too bad, but he's around, as you know, just under 2 seconds. And here is, yes, indeed, Michael Schumacher has done it once again. The Ferrari master technician, by far and away the most skillful driver out there at the moment. Michael Schumacher has taken the lead. This is brilliant stuff here at the Hungaroring. We have a new race leader in Michael Schumacher. Mika Hakkinen has to be content with second place, and exactly what we predicted might happen has transpired here at the Hungaroring. Those blistering laps that Michael Schumacher appears to be able to pull out of the hat after, or indeed before his pit stops, have worked wonders. And of course the tactical brain of Ross Brawn behind this move as well, I would say, and confirmation there of the fastest lap. He's down now to 1:19.594. Michael Schumacher really is putting it in right now. Well, he said, David, and we said it, he said that before the race he was extremely confident about his race setup, and his words have proven prophetic so often in the past, and maybe they're going to do so today, because now Michael Schumacher is leading the Hungarian Grand Prix. Still Mika Hakkinen in with a chance of victory this afternoon, but now he's got to reel in the former two-time world champion Michael Schumacher. What a brilliant performance by him.
Again, once allowing for the fact that Schumacher has had that additional fuel on board, because if he hasn't, at that 6.8 seconds on lap 41 on a 77 lap race won't bring him home. So unless he's got that extra fuel on board, he won't be able to do it. So we still don't know. He might be in for a splash and dash. He could be in for a 3-second stop. He won't have to change tyres or anything. He could just get the fuel in and get out. But remember, you lose 20 seconds just coming into the pit lane and out of the pit lane, and you'll have to add that to the number of the time that you're stationary in the pits. So the gap between Schumacher and Hakkinen now is 5 seconds, or well, actually it's 4.9, and still Schumacher is setting in the fastest segment times. The gap between Hakkinen and Coulthard, as you see there, is 1.5 seconds. But we don't expect to see Coulthard chase Hakkinen on the course here. But Damon Hill still holding a very solid fourth place, 18 seconds behind Coulthard, but still battling mightily with Jack Villeneuve in fifth place. It's 0.4 of a second. And on board with the maestro himself, out over the curbs there, up through the gears, down through the back section. The course drops away here. You hear him feather through the corner here at the mobile corner. Then a chicane here, tight right-hander over the curb on the left-hand side, monsters it there, lifts it up into the air, down through the gears, down the second gear, tight left-hander right on the curb. Beautiful control of the throttle here, runs out wide into the entry into the pit lane, up into third gear, balances it here, gets in really early, drifts out the midsection, tiny bit of oversteer there as he drifts out over the curb, using all the road and more. 30 laps remaining, and what's the gap? That last lap was a 1:19.85, so he's in the 19s. What are Hakkinen and Coulthard doing? We'll see shortly as they go by. Hakkinen's lap at 1:22.2, obviously held up with a back marker there, and Coulthard now at 1:21. Now we've seen this before, Peter, in Argentina when Michael Schumacher got the lead. What we saw was a very conservative Mika Hakkinen battle safely. He came off the gas, he didn't risk the car, he was happy to settle for second place, because remember, 6 points for second place, 10 for first place, so it's only 4 in the difference there. So it could be that he's taking a safe margin on this one.
Into the pits comes Tor Takagi in the Tyrrell. Well, down as far as the race order is concerned, 17th position for the Japanese driver. The big question now, as we enter the final 30 laps of this Hungarian Grand Prix, is what is Michael Schumacher going to do? What has been the Ferrari strategy? Will they have to pay a quick visit to the pit road for a splash and dash to get Michael Schumacher to the end of this Hungarian Grand Prix? We don't know whether he had lots of fuel on board when he made that first, and it seemed to be a pretty premature pit stop. But knowing Schumacher and Ross Brawn, this has been very well thought out, and now he is trying to stretch his advantage ahead of the two McLarens. Last time round it was 7.4 seconds. Michael Schumacher, as we watch now, Ralf Schumacher in 10th position, and he laps the cross there. So Ralf still continuing there in 10th position in the race order, well outside the points finish at the moment. And there you see Michael going through behind him. So and we have Johnny Herbert in the pits. Johnny Herbert in the pits for the Sauber. Well, Johnny had a late first stop, and that's a pretty early second pit stop for the Sauber driver. So let's update you on the position. Michael Schumacher leading now by 9 seconds from Mika Hakkinen, and lapping around a second and a half quicker than the Finnish driver at the moment. So it looks like Michael Schumacher with, I think, David, at this stage it might suggest that his fuel load is pretty light. He is putting in some very fast lap times compared to Hakkinen and Coulthard, so he may be trying to stretch that advantage, and maybe towards the very end of this race dive into the pits, get the smallest bit of fuel on board, and hopefully come back out in the lead. That's what we're looking at in this Hungarian Grand Prix. Now Michael comes up behind Ralf again. The brothers Schumacher out on the Hungaroring as we go back to the pits, and Alexander Wirtz. Well, I think I'd prefer to see this battle going on, even though Michael is about to lap Ralf once again. Ralf in 10th position, Michael our race leader. I don't think Ralf will cause any problems. I know he hasn't caused him any problems, because Ralf has allowed Michael go through. Here he is through turn 13. Ralf going through behind him in 10th place, and we're now off on lap number 51 of the 77, and we're going to take a short commercial break now. Then we're going to take you all the way to the checkered flag in what is proving to be a thoroughly exciting and enthralling Hungarian Grand Prix. And you're very welcome back to the Hungaroring. Well, Michael Schumacher has had a major moment through turn 13 last time round. He got his line all wrong, and believe it or not, ran right off the track, and maybe we can have a look back at that right now. Here's what happened. So Michael Schumacher survived that very hairy moment indeed. He did lose time, because on the previous lap to that he was 12.4 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen, and then the gap was down to 10.9. But interestingly, what has happened, and I can tell you the camera has just stayed on Michael Schumacher. Maybe they're anticipating another wild maneuver, but not on this occasion for Michael. But I can tell you that David Coulthard was able to get by Mika Hakkinen, and the gap now is 13.9 seconds back to David Coulthard from Michael Schumacher, and that's liable to change once again, because that was another fast lap by Michael Schumacher in the 19s. He's still lapping in the 119s. So let's see now as David Coulthard approaches the start-finish line. It's 16 seconds now. So the McLaren drivers are losing, I should say, a huge amount to the Ferrari F300. This is a great drive by Michael Schumacher, and of course that little off-course excursion is a sign of the aggression with which he is driving at the moment.
Peter, what will happen here is if you get 1 foot off line because of the gravel, here we have Frentzen coming in for his second pit stop. But we've had 2 pit stops on that break. We've had Ralf Schumacher and Damon Hill. Damon Hill now is down in 6th place, but he'll get by Frentzen. And we've got to watch very closely what's going to happen with Villeneuve, and Villeneuve makes his pit stop. He hasn't been in yet. And here we see he gets in and out perfectly, no problems there. But Schumacher's times are in the 19s. That last lap was a 1 minute 19.8 against Coulthard's 1 minute 21.8. But the big problem is with Mika Hakkinen. He's dropped his his times by 2 seconds slower than his teammate, and it hasn't been just that last lap, it's been the last couple of laps. He's best part of 2 seconds slower than his teammate, and 3 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher. So at the moment, 19 seconds between Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, and we'll get a read on that when they come by here on this lap. It's 19.8, a 1 minute 21 dead from Michael Schumacher. Coulthard's been running in the high 21s. We'll see what he put in that last lap. Coulthard goes by us here any second now. He's 16 seconds behind, so he's dropping best part of 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap.
Well, we believe you didn't see the incident where Michael Schumacher went off course, but we do have that for you now. It was a rather dramatic moment. Here it is. And there behind him on the track now, Ralph once again. So Michael Schumacher losing valuable time there. He had opened up a gap of 12.5 seconds over Mika Häkkinen last time round. So last valuable time through turn 13. And as we wait for Mika Häkkinen to cross the line, he should. Let's see what the time difference now is. David Coulthard, in fact, 10.9 seconds. So where Mika Häkkinen has slipped to third position.
Michael Schumacher running a little bit wide, gets it wrong, fully opposite lock, Bridgestone corner just before the start, pit straight, gets it wrong, he's off on the dirt, he must have lost a bag full of time there. Is he going to get it back onto the circuit? Inches to go, he's still no gravel there, he's kept the power and he's kept the car straight. He was 10 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen on the last lap. He's getting it back on, now he's still going and the car is running well for Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher, still your race leader on lap number 56. 16.2 seconds back to David Coulthard. Last time round we have Mika Häkkinen in third place, and Mika has dropped off the pace. Now, we don't have any specific reason for that at the moment, but it could be just an offset of Bridgestones are causing him to lose a little bit of time on these laps, and Mika was 5 seconds adrift of his teammate last time round. It's now split out to 6.7 seconds, so the World Championship leader having problems out there at the moment. Jacques Villeneuve has been in the pits, and a very good pit stop by the Williams crew, and it has meant that Jacques Villeneuve has moved up to fourth place at the expense of Damon Hill, who is now running in fifth position. So fifth for Damon, fourth for Jacques Villeneuve, then Heinz-Harald Frentzen, well, sixth position for the German driver. Wirth is running in seventh for Benetton. Jean Alesi eighth, and the Sauber Giancarlo Fisichella for Benetton ninth, and we have Johnny Herbert 10th. Ralf Schumacher, who has also made his second stop of this race, is in 11th position. So both the Jordan drivers have lost positions out on the track as a result of their second pit stops. Will they be able to make it up before we hit the checkered flag? Still plenty of time, plenty of laps to be completed here at the Hungaroring. Michael Schumacher is driving so hard out there at the moment, you wouldn't believe it. It's really blistering out there. 120.106 last time round, so he has dropped out of the 119s. So I think it suggests with 20 laps to go that we will see Michael Schumacher come in towards the closing stages of this race for a quick splash and dash, but he is still pulling away from David Coulthard. 17.5 seconds. It's now 18.8 seconds to the German. Coulthard's lap, 1 minute 21.377. Now we have to look at a magic figure here for Michael Schumacher, David. It's going to be around the 20-second mark or so.
Well, speaking to the Jordan engineers before that, they said the in and out time is 20 seconds, and add to that the fuel load that you carry. So for a splash and dash it might be 2-3 seconds, so add that to 20 seconds, it's 23 seconds. Now that gets him in and out ahead of Mika Häkkinen, but Coulthard, the gap between himself and Coulthard is just on 19 seconds. So it's absolutely marginal in here, and hence the reason why you see Schumacher drive at this pace. Now he wouldn't have to drive like this at this pace unless he's actually got another stop to make. So he's absolutely over the limit. You saw the replay there on the last corner before the pit straight. He just went into it a fraction too quick, ran wide, and amazingly gathered it up. Anyone that we've seen run wide there has ended up in the boonies, but he's managed to keep it together, and some quick times been put in there by Jacques Villeneuve. Villeneuve now in fourth place is a good 5.7 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. So that option for the softer tyres hasn't worked to Damon Hill's advantage. A slight miscalculation there on their part, but a big disappointment, because look, he's been held up by Tora Takagi. That'll blow more steam out of his ears if there's any steam left. Between Coulthard and Schumacher is 21.3 seconds, and back to Häkkinen is 27.2.
Yes, so Mika Hakkinen in third place, still dropping away, and the lap time of Michael Schumacher last time round, highly impressive, 1 minute 19.625, whereas David Coulthard, well, he dropped right away, 122.165 and 124.265 for Mika Hakkinen. So whether it's the performance of the Bridgestone rubber on the McLaren, who knows, but certainly the car is not performing half as well as they did in the early stages of this Hungarian Grand Prix. Now last year the McLaren suffered around here, neither got to the finish. The reason being, of course, was mechanical failures. Both Mercedes V10 exploded here at the Hungaroring, and although the reliability of the Mercedes V10 is now as good as any other power unit out there, I suppose there may be a slight question mark over it because of the nature of this circuit. It's very, very good and very reliable at the high-speed circuits, but you know, this is a very demanding circuit despite the fact that they're not flat out for much of the lap, but it still is very punishing on driver, on car, and indeed on engines. But we still have 17 running out there. In fact, Rubens Barrichello now is gone from this Hungarian Grand Prix, so we're down to 16 of the 21 who went to the start. 59 laps have been completed, and there's now the gap. That's the significant mark, 23 seconds. Michael Schumacher may very well be about to achieve his goal, and that excellent tactical play early on the second pit stop. Small fuel load, new tyres, get out, put in some severely fast laps, and that's what he has done, and he's been doing it consistently. Last time round again in the 119s, David Coulthard the 121, so he's losing time, and it's now 23 seconds dead between Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard out on track. So if Michael Schumacher were to pit this time round, and he's not, well, and Ralf Schumacher off the circuit. The Jordan of Ralf Schumacher in the dirt. Well, he keeps the engine going, keeps it running, but Ralf now, well, any chance he may have had of a late charge and possibly capitalizing on maybe a few cars going off later, that appears to have gone as a result of that off-course excursion. So the day not going too well for Ralf, but let's hope he gets it to the checkered flag.
Coming up to the second corner here, back on the oversteer, locks up the rears, and he puts the boot into the power so to keep the wheels spinning, so hopefully he can turn the car around in its own length. It didn't work, but you get the yellow flag wave, and so he's off and out of it again, but so his chances are shot for a good position. But Schumacher now set the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 19.2, so he's got to be coming in any second, and the gap between himself and Coulthard must have opened. We're on board with Mika Hakkinen here. He's coming up to the start and finish straight, and is he coming into the pits? No, his times are dropping really badly. It has to be some mechanical problems there, Peter, and I see him looking down into his cockpit earlier on, so I'm sure maybe it's a gearbox problem or an engine problem. Maybe he's got to drop the revs to keep the engine in play there, but some real serious problems. The gap is 24.9 between Schumacher and Coulthard. Between Hakkinen and Schumacher is 41 seconds. Now Villeneuve is actually catching Mika Hakkinen hand over fist, 2 seconds a lap. That last lap was a 1 minute 22.8 by Villeneuve against a 1 minute 24.1 from Hakkinen, so 2 seconds a lap. So certainly Jacques Villeneuve is going to be shortly putting Mika Hakkinen under pressure.
The Ferrari pit crew have taken their place on the pit road, so Michael Schumacher coming round now to complete lap number 61, and it's the fuel rig they have ready. Yes, they have indeed, and a new set of tyres for Michael Schumacher. So how well has this strategy been thought out, whether it was pre-race or not, whatever, it seems to be working well for them. 23 seconds has now gone out to 24.9 seconds and 41.1 seconds back to Mika Hakkinen. So forget Mika Hakkinen at this stage. He's not Michael Schumacher's threat. David Coulthard still is. 24.9 seconds. We reckon the crucial point was when he hit that 23-second mark, and then the lap after that, well, we saw the Ferrari pit crew right opposite us here from our commentary position take their place, and there they are. They're waiting for the race leader to come in. Will he be in and out fast enough to maintain his position? P1 for Michael Schumacher, second in the Drivers' World Championship at the moment. He'll also have got word from the pits that Mika Hakkinen is dropping off the pace, and dropping off the pace at a fair old rate. Last time round, a lap of 124.722. Jacques Villeneuve is beginning to reel him in quite substantially. Jacques 121.779, all of 3 seconds quicker. So if it continues at that rate, Mika Hakkinen will be in trouble. Jacques Villeneuve will be challenging him. Damon Hill's time, well, he's 7 seconds now behind Jacques Villeneuve, and Damon lapping in the 122s at the moment. Michael Schumacher into the pit entrance and heading towards that pit road as fast as he physically can. Hard on the brakes here now, hits the white line, 120 k's, that's all he's allowed as he heads down towards his pit markings now. Michael Schumacher, the race leader. This is a crucial point in this Hungarian Grand Prix. David Coulthard yet to make his approach to turn 13. Oh, it's slower than anticipated, and a problem with that left rear. They've decided not to change it possibly. 7.7 seconds, I think it's not enough. Let's see what happens. Michael Schumacher down the pit road. We're waiting for David Coulthard. Out comes Michael Schumacher. Well, no sign of Coulthard. Through goes a Benetton past us, and is this the McLaren? It's one of the McLarens indeed. Let's get close in on that. That is David Coulthard. He remains in second place. Brilliant work by Ferrari this afternoon. David Coulthard was well over 24 seconds adrift, and Michael Schumacher made that stop. We thought he would have needed to have been in and out, well, on the blocks, I should say, for around 3 to 4 seconds. They left him there for 7, getting the tyres on and the fuel on board. Plenty to get him all the way to the checkered flag, and amazingly, he's still leading the Hungarian Grand Prix. Tactically, that has been brilliant by the Ferrari team this afternoon. No other word for it. David Coulthard and the McLaren team tried to respond when they saw what Michael Schumacher was up to earlier on, but it just didn't work out for them. And here is Häkkinen in big trouble as we see Johnny Herbert go by in the Sauber to unlap himself. That's not an overtaking maneuver as such, because Johnny was a lap down, but Mika Häkkinen obviously in serious trouble out there.
Well, the way he's driving on the straight certainly indicates there's an engine problem there. I don't think it's anything else other than that. Probably dropped the revs down, maybe misfiring on one of the cylinders or something, but certainly a much reduced pace. That's a lap 1 minute 25.7 between Villeneuve and Häkkinen. Now it's 9.7 seconds, so Villeneuve is certainly going to pull him in at that rate. Coulthard still putting in laps at the 121, and the gap we're going to see shortly now as Michael Schumacher goes by. So there was over 24 seconds between them, and as it's only now 5 seconds between Coulthard and Michael Schumacher. But certainly we've got to watch Häkkinen and see what Villeneuve is doing there.
Well, has he done it again? The master tactician Michael Schumacher leading this Hungarian Grand Prix with 63 laps completed. He's out on lap number 64, 13.5 laps to go to the checkered flag. David Coulthard 5 seconds behind. Well, Mika Häkkinen was third last time round, but he's encountering severe mechanical problems out there. He's 25 seconds behind his teammates, so 30 behind Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen isn't going to threaten for the race win today, unless, of course, the two ahead have mechanical failures of some nature. But Jacques Villeneuve is closing the gap now in 4th position on Mika Häkkinen. It's down to 9.1 seconds. Jacques Villeneuve closing and closing fast, although his last lap encountering a little bit of traffic did slow him down somewhat, so Jacques not able to take full advantage on lap number 63. Damon Hill 8.7 seconds away from Villeneuve, so Damon is losing time on the Williams. We saw earlier on in the race the Jordan 198 was quite capable of staying ahead of the current Williams, but at the moment Williams of Jacques Villeneuve performing that a little bit better out on track. Lap times, well, a good one last time round by Damon, 121.959, and he had been under a little bit of pressure from Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the second Williams. He's in a Williams sandwich at the moment, but Damon increased his pace last time round and now has nearly 2 seconds to spare over Frentzen in 6th position. So lots of traffic out on the track at the moment for Michael Schumacher, and negotiating it with ease, coming up behind the Tyrrell of Tora Takagi. And he shouldn't have any too much difficulty getting by the young Japanese driver. Yes, Takagi making room quite sensibly, allowing the race leader through. His advantage over Coulthard when they crossed the start-finish line last time round was 5.5 seconds. So has he been able to increase the pace? The Tyrrell will have slowed him down somewhat, but remember Coulthard also encountering traffic at this stage of the race. 64 laps completed, coming round very shortly to start lap number 65, and there was the gap when they crossed the start-finish line last time round. Michael Schumacher has driven a superb race. Ferrari tactically have called this one correctly. A little bit unfortunate for Eddie Irvine that he went out so early in this race. No doubt he would have been running in the championship points, but for the moment we're concentrating on the race leader Michael Schumacher, and I can tell you that Mika Häkkinen really is in trouble again. Another lap in the late 124s, while Jacques Villeneuve has dropped into the 20s, 120.918, and the gap between Villeneuve and Häkkinen is only 5 seconds now. 5 seconds between third placed Häkkinen, fourth placed Villeneuve. Michael Schumacher will be praying, of course, that Jacques Villeneuve can take that third position from Mika Häkkinen, because of course Häkkinen leading by 16 points in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, and while Michael Schumacher will be hoping for the 10 here this afternoon, he would prefer Mika Häkkinen to come home in 4th and pick up 3 points as opposed to the 4 he'd pick up for finishing 3rd. Every single point counts. You don't know what's going to be in it when they hit the last race of the season in Japan, but that's a long way away. 4 races to go before that, including the finish of this one, the Hungarian Grand Prix, and it's proved to be a right tactical battle. Ferrari have had the upper hand. That's what we thought it was going to be. Tactics, and hugely important here around the Hungaroring. It is a tight circuit, not too many high-speed straights. In fact, the speeds compared to Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, well down. They achieved over 220 miles per hour here. David, I think the speed, or I should say at Hockenheim here, well, maybe around 170 tops.
Yeah, Peter, just looking at Villeneuve here, chasing on Häkkinen. The gap now is down to under 2 seconds and eating him hand over fist at all places around the circuit. So I think Häkkinen is just playing a watching brief now. He's just got to take it steady. Villeneuve look down the inside. He knows he's got him. He doesn't really have to hustle to get it by him. Villeneuve now knows he's about best part of 40 seconds behind Coulthard. So Häkkinen is going to be easy prey. So Häkkinen certainly now down to 4th place. Now, does this give Damon a chance? If Damon has been told that Häkkinen has such serious problems, he should really muscle in there and try and grab up into 4th place. And I'm sure Damon, but Häkkinen is still battling away. He doesn't want to let him get it by too easy. But certainly down the pit straight, we'll be able to see it here. Häkkinen rolls his head left and right, watches the wing mirrors here. Tight left-hander, then onto the pit straight, a long right-hander. Does Villeneuve dive at him here? I don't think so. Is he going to dive down the inside? No, Villeneuve's going to have a run at him out of this corner, taking a wide line and be able to accelerate and shoot by him down the straight. Maybe he's lost a gear or something, Häkkinen, so he goes from 3rd maybe to 5th gear, so hence losing a lot of power. We're trying to hear the engine note from here. It's very difficult, but he's certainly well down on the pace there. Now, what's the gap between Hill and Häkkinen? That's the one we've got to look at, because Hill is still putting in some fairly reasonable laps, and the gap between Hill and is about 9.8 seconds. So with lap 766 and the 77 lap race, he should be able to get by him if he's losing 2 seconds a lap.
That's Ralph running behind Mika Häkkinen at the moment. Ralph will unlap himself if he gets by the Finnish driver. Ralph down in 11th position behind Johnny Herbert, who's running 10th for Sauber. So it'll be interesting to see where Ralph can get by. Having a look down the inside here, does Mika make room? Not on this occasion, because remember, Ralph is running a lap down, but definitely some form of problem with Mika Häkkinen's McLaren MP413. As you suggested, David, he could have lost a gear, maybe missing, although top gear wouldn't be suffering too much around here, but maybe he's lost a couple, but he's still going out there. Any point could be valuable, so he's going to race it all the way to the checkered flag if he's able to do so. Michael Schumacher now has an 11-second advantage over David Coulthard, and he's still lapping, well, nearly a second quicker than the Scottish driver. So the McLaren not performing as well as many had anticipated here at the Hungaroring. Let's see, will Ralph be able to get by now as they come out back onto the straight through turn 13 for the 68th time of 77 laps. Häkkinen crosses the line. Ralph may have just a little look out now. Yes, he does. And he goes through, holds on to his line. 10 laps to go in the Hungarian Grand Prix. Ralph Schumacher unlaps himself. What we're waiting to see now is how quickly Damon Hill can close the gap on Mika Häkkinen. And Häkkinen's time last time round, it's even slower again. 1:26.004. Damon Hill, 1:22.642. Damon, 3.5 seconds faster than the McLaren. So we should very soon see Damon Hill come up behind Mika Häkkinen and push for that 4th place. This is Ralph going by.
To see a replay of it, seems to lose just at the top end there. I think probably all his gears are intact, or maybe just top gear giving him some problem there. But I think more than anything else, that's an engine problem. Maybe the temperatures have run too high. There's some blockage in the radiators there, so he's got to drop his revs to keep the engine a little bit cooler. But Michael Schumacher has a good 12 seconds over David Coulthard at the moment. So at the moment, he seems to be got that fairly secure in the bag at the moment, Michael Schumacher.
What could very well happen here this afternoon, Mika Häkkinen could drop out of the points placings altogether, because as I said, only 6 seconds back to Damon Hill, and that's closing, as you can see, visibly closing, and that's Frentzen flashing through behind Damon Hill. So these two could very well get by the World Championship leader, and Michael Schumacher, if he wins, could pick up the 10 points and close the gap again to just 6 points between 1 and 2 in the quest for the driver's title. Well, I don't know how many people would have thought that prior to the beginning of this Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, that there would be only 6 points between these two, but the way this race is shaping up and we're into the closing stages, if Damon Hill goes by Häkkinen, then he slips to 6th position. If Frentzen goes by Häkkinen, he's out of the championship points. Our race leader is Michael Schumacher. He's heading for the 10. Is he going to make it? 68 laps. They're on lap number 69. 12.4 seconds the gap back from Michael Schumacher to David Coulthard. A half minute then back to Jacques Villeneuve in third position. Mika Häkkinen 8 seconds adrift. Hill now is close to within 2 seconds of Mika Häkkinen. Frentzen is around 1.7 seconds adrift of Damon Hill. There is Häkkinen. Very shortly you're going to see the distinctive snout of the Jordan appear. Damon flashing through there. He's closing and closing fast out on the circuit. Will he be close enough next time they hit the start-finish straight? Because that is the obvious place to get by. Damon now pushing very, very hard indeed, trying to stay ahead of Frentzen and trying to be as close as possible to Mika Häkkinen by the time they hit the start-finish straight next time round. So there's nothing between them. Häkkinen in big trouble. He has a mechanical problem out there. He's keeping the car going. And is this Damon Hill's opportunity? He's close, but maybe not close enough as they exit this corner, the final corner on this 13-turn Hungaroring. Damon Hill not close enough this time round across the start-finish line, but the gap is now down to just over a second. A second between Häkkinen and Damon Hill. The battle for 4th and 5th. Frentzen is 6th.
Peter, just watching the times between Hill and Frentzen, Hill is running best part of 3/4 of a second slower than Frentzen. Now Frentzen has on the hard tyres, Damon on the soft tyres, so obviously his tyres are beginning to degrade a little bit, dropping off. That sort of time will put him under severe pressure from Frentzen. But there's another query that we have here on lap 70 with 7 left to go. What is Ron Dennis thinking about David Coulthard? Is he going to hold Coulthard back to let Mika Häkkinen maybe score even 1 or 2 points to shove him up? Because it's vitally important. I think it's highly unlikely, because obviously he wants one of his men on the podium, and we see Alexander Wirth slowing on the pit straight. He's just coming to a stop here ahead of us, so he seems to be pulling in. So he was just behind Frentzen, but that's going to help maybe Ralf Schumacher move into 10th place, but not into the championship points. Here we see Damon Hill now getting closer all the time to Häkkinen, and Häkkinen has improved his times a little bit. If you remember, he was running in the 25s. He's now got it down to the 23s again, so he's putting up a mighty fight as best he can with the problems of the car, and I imagine that is some engine or probably gearbox problems there. But just once again, bear in mind what Coulthard might be thinking, or what Ron Dennis might tell him. This is where Häkkinen defends himself here. He can only make a certain shot out of it, and he can't defend himself on the straight. There's nothing he can do. This is actually a replay when we saw Ralf Schumacher go by.
So Damon Hill making the move now into turn number 1, and through he goes. Damon Hill back up to 4th position. Mika Häkkinen slips to 5th, and now he'll be facing pressure from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Now this is a situation that could very well favour Damon Hill again, because Mika Häkkinen is one of the slower cars now out on the circuit. We don't normally say that about the McLaren, but obviously encountering problems. Now it'll take Frentzen a little bit of time to get by. He's having a look there. Is Mika Häkkinen going to make room? No, because Mika knows now he's defending a single point, and a single point could certainly count. So he's not going to let Heinz-Harald Frentzen by with great ease. So if Frentzen has to stay behind Häkkinen for the entire lap, he's going to lose a lot of time on Damon Hill, as we see Alexander Wirth make his way back to the Benetton garage. His race is over, and there he squeezes through. Frentzen knows it was crucially important for him to get by before the end of this lap, lap number 72, and he has done so, but he will have lost a little bit of time on Damon Hill, and that could be vital by the time they hit that checkered flag in 6 laps time. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen goes through in the Williams. He's now up to 5th place, 6th place I should say. Damon Hill running 5th for Jordan. But let's see now, the leaders are crossing the line in front of us as we look at the replay first.
Very brave by Frentzen here. This is a couple of the fast sweeps at the top end of the circuit, but he was absolutely frustrated there. If he wants to get on equal terms with Hill, it's lap 71. He's got to really push and push like hell. So there's a good chance here that now Frentzen will be able to take that 4th place back from Hill. I've just heard word from the pits, Peter, that Declan was down to McLaren, and they surprisingly wouldn't tell him what was wrong with Mika Häkkinen's car. But anyhow, we know he's in serious trouble and he's losing places inch by inch. And meanwhile, Michael Schumacher still holds that very solid 1st place with 14 seconds back to Coulthard.
Well, really, what a fantastic drive by Michael Schumacher in the first portion of this race. If we take it in 3 parts, he just kept pace with David Coulthard in 2nd place, who in turn wasn't letting his teammate Mika Häkkinen get too far away, and there was never more than 4 seconds or so between Michael Schumacher and the race leader. Then, of course, he went in for that earlier than expected stop, took on a relatively small fuel load, and came out and started racing again. And then, of course, we had that 6.8 second stop. That really was the vital point in this race, and Michael Schumacher capitalizing there in the Ferrari pits with some excellent strategy, and then, of course, established a significant advantage over David Coulthard in second place. Of course, Schumacher wasn't to know that Mika Hakkinen was going to encounter a mechanical problem, but nonetheless, I think he would have been able to open the advantage as he did on David Coulthard, on Mika Hakkinen, if Hakkinen had been running cleanly out there. I think the strategy would have worked nonetheless for Ferrari. It's been an excellently thought out strategy by them, and Michael Schumacher, the man benefiting now. 14 seconds his advantage over Coulthard.
Peter, just looking at Hakkinen's time there, he did the last lap was a 1:27.7, so he's way off the pace, and at that rate, with John Alesi now in 7th place, he might even lose that last championship point, because that's a huge margin to be dropping away. That's 5 seconds, 6 seconds a lap slower than Jean Alesi, so he's got to battle hard on there. But what a mighty performance from Schumacher, absolutely peerless. I mean, if he's won this race, he's won it by stealth, strategy, and of course, as ever, blistering speed, and the pit work that Ross Brawn pulled there. But it was terrific to see Ron Dennis reply by getting his cars in so much earlier, way before you would normally expect him to go, but he didn't gang on that Michael Schumacher taking such a light load to be able to open up that gap so he could make the third stop. Absolutely blinding performance once again by the team. They are, if not having the best car, they certainly are the best team and undoubtedly the best driver.
Yes, there's no question about that at the moment. Michael Schumacher, the class of the field in the Ferrari F300, and making the most of the Hungaroring this afternoon. Still the gap, 14.4 seconds. There's still half a minute back to Jacques Villeneuve. And then, of course, Damon Hill 4th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen running in 5th place. I think I actually demoted Mika Hakkinen out of the top 6 a little prematurely. He is still there in 6th position, but Jean Alesi may be able to catch him over the closing laps because, well, Mika's time's dropping way down now. Last time round, 1:26, and we're still waiting for him to cross the start finish line. 1:25.996, so very close to the 1:26 mark again. Now, Jean Alesi was 30 seconds behind last time round. It's a tall order to ask the Frenchman to try and reel that in over the last 3 laps, so Hakkinen may very well just clinch that 6th place and final point of this Hungarian Grand Prix. So Michael Schumacher, your race leader. Here is the 2nd place man at the moment, David Coulthard. He's closed the gap a little bit, but it's not significant with 3 laps remaining in this race. It's now down to 13.9 seconds, but that's not significant at this stage. Michael Schumacher just has to keep this car between the ditches and get it to the checkered flag to take what would be his 5th race win of the season. So a superb drive by Michael Schumacher this afternoon. Leading David Coulthard in 2nd place, Jacques Villeneuve. Could he be on for his 2nd podium finish of this 1998 season? He was on the podium at Hockenheim 2 weeks ago, and maybe for Jacques, it could be podium finish number 2 for him this afternoon. Damon Hill then is around 15 seconds away from the Williams driver. So Damon, a good lap by Damon last time round. His fastest of the race, believe it or not, 1:20.730 for the Dublin-based driver. So Damon Hill still pushing hard, still knows that anything could happen over the closing laps. Michael Schumacher coming around now to complete lap number 75, and then on to the penultimate lap of this Hungarian Grand Prix, encountering a little bit of traffic. He won't be overly concerned with that. Hopefully the Prost will move over and let Michael through as he heads down towards turn 1. Yes, that's exactly what happens. Don't hold up the race leader at this stage. So through goes Michael Schumacher. There are 2 laps to go.
That was interesting, a little bit of overtaking there. If you saw very closely how quick the Prost was in the straight, it actually kept pace and actually moved ahead of the Ferrari on the straight. So along with the Tyrrell, and the Tyrrell of course had his speed because it was running slightly lighter aerodynamics than anybody else, trying to buck the trend as ever. Tyrrell always pushing the bounds of testing ability right to the end, but certainly the Prost still seemed to have the most powerful engine out there and set the quickest times here at 179 miles an hour. But we've got Michael Schumacher heading to be a double winner if he puts this in the bag here. Just behind him, David Coulthard, 12.7 seconds. Jacques Villeneuve having won here twice in 3rd place. Damon Hill having won twice in 4th place. And of course Frentzen, that gap between, which you don't see on your screen there, is Frentzen is only best part of under half a second behind Damon Hill. Mika Hakkinen now is 18 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, so he's lost 18 seconds over the last couple of laps, but with 2 laps remaining, he should be able to pull it home in ahead of Jean Alesi in 6th place and get himself 1 point.
So Michael Schumacher, your race leader. Damon Hill, another good lap from him, 1:20.680 here at the Hungaroring, and Damon looking for his 2nd consecutive 4th place finish. Michael Schumacher coming up behind Pedro Diniz in the Arrows. Final lap now. He goes through once again, turn 1. That's where we've seen most, if not all, of the overtaking manoeuvres this afternoon. But Michael lapping the Arrows driver once again. And look now, he's about to encounter Mika Hakkinen. So what's going to happen here? Is he going to try and charge by Mika Hakkinen? I'm sure Mika, he's a very fair driver, isn't going to cause Michael Schumacher any problems. He's leading the race fairly and squarely. David Coulthard, 11.2 seconds the gap the last time they went by, and Mika waves them through quite sportingly there. He knows Michael is on his way to a very significant victory here this afternoon. With 4 races to go after this Hungarian Grand Prix, the driver's title, well, it's still wide open. The battle is between Michael Schumacher and the driver he just sailed by there, Mika Hakkinen, who looks like he's going to just hold on for that 6th place finish at a point which will be valuable to him come this season's end. Michael Schumacher driving for Ferrari, a 2-time world champion with Benetton, of course. His quest in joining the Ferrari team was to bring them a world championship. He thought it would take a couple of years. Well, this is his 3rd year. Is he going to do it for them this season? It'll be a huge achievement for the German driver. He really has dragged them up by the heels. Michael Schumacher comes round to take victory number 5 of this 1998 season. He really is back in the hunt now in the quest for the World Drivers' Championship. A brilliant drive by the German. Full credit to the Ferrari team for their excellent tactical work around this Hungaroring. They worked so hard on race setup, and it has proven to be very beneficial indeed on this race afternoon. They called their strategy right as far as pit stops were concerned. Michael Schumacher, and in fact it's very interesting to note that Michael, the only one to visit the pits 3 times. Rubens Barrichello, I think, was in 3 times as well, but that was more for a mechanical problem, and Rubens eventually had to retire. But our race winner this afternoon is Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard comes home in 2nd place for McLaren. In 3rd we have Jacques Villeneuve, and in 4th place Damon Hill for Jordan. So another points finish for Damon, and that'll strengthen their position in the Constructors' Championship. Heinz-Harald Frentzen comes home in 5th place. In 6th place, Mika Hakkinen, Jean Alesi 7th, Giancarlo Fisichella in 8th place, Ralf Schumacher 9th, and Johnny Herbert 10th. So we're going to take a short commercial break right now from the Hungaroring, and we'll be back then with the podium celebrations, and we'll also hear from the drivers.